Malcolm Harris and Michael Vincent will be talking with Justin Wandell from Axle Logistics and Tom Hertwich from Basis Solutions. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But right now, Tom, it's time for our keynote with Jeff Wood from Steam Logistics.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to, again, the Domestic Supply Chain Summit. My name is Malcolm Harris, representing FreightWaves, and today we have a special keynote address. This guy I've known for a very, very long time. He's seen me throughout a lot of iterations of my career, and it's an honor to be able to have a conversation and discuss a lot of domestic principles with this guy. And with this being said, he is now the newly appointed president of domestic at Steam Logistics and a new Chattanooga, Tennessee resident. I want to bring out now Mr. Jeff Wood. Jeff, what's up, man?
Good to see you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thank you so much for being here. You're getting your sea legs, or really, let's say your chat legs.
Yes, I am.
You've been here all of, a week, 2 weeks?
Yeah, I moved in last Thursday, so it's been 8 days today.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. How has the initial welcome to the scenic city been for you so far?
I'm a part of the 423 now.
Oh,
I absolutely love it. Beautiful place to raise a family. I'm excited for the future here.
Oh, it's awesome, man. It's awesome. Well, you know, for those, again, in my career, Jeff has been very influential. You're the first, whenever I went to Minnesota a couple years ago, that's the longest, I've been up north. I've never been that far. I came to see you. You treated me, the hospitality, everything is.
Hopefully you didn't come in the winter.
No. I think this was like a little. It was springtime because it was career fair season. It was great, and no, I'm glad that we got you down here though. This is great.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you today.
Of course. Now let's get to it because this is big. Right. This is officially a new role for you.
Yes, it is.
Stepping into the president of domestic. Tell me how this came about, for one, and then two, what's the initial emotion? I mean, this is a big deal, man.
Well, it came about, I would say, about a year ago. I was running our Minneapolis team, and we were a high-performing, highly successful team for Steam. And I had some ideas and things that I wanted to deliver to that team that could better help my employees and also better help our customers, be more efficient, be better for some of our carrier partners, some of our enterprise shippers. So I started bringing up ideas and things that I wanted to do strictly for my Minneapolis team to the corporate guys. And it just got to a point where it was like, these are some good ideas. These are some things that we want to implement, but how could we just do that over one branch? So we started to have conversations about, the next chapter of Steam and kind of where we're headed. And it just kind of became an opportunity that was presented to me that says, hey, if you really think this is the best thing to do, we believe you. We believe in, what you've done for us and where your vision is headed. And how about trying to do it for the entire division? So the initial thing, was very grateful, right? I've worked with a lot of great leaders at Steam. There's a lot of great people at Steam, and to be selected and to be the person to take this role, I mean, I was very grateful for that opportunity, and also very thankful for the leaders that I've had in my career. I feel like I've had some great leadership, some great mentors that have helped me and guided me. So thankful for them, and honestly, now just extremely excited about where we're going.
I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for Steam. I think very highly, obviously, of the organization, and I'm excited to see, what comes with it and the new moves that have been made. I guess my next question is, when it comes specifically to the Steam story, your DNA, I mean, the Jeff Wood brand is it's everywhere, and you're a humble guy. You're not going to say it. I will. But when you think of Steam, what's the one word that comes to mind most whenever you think of Steam, your time, and specifically what's to come as well?
The one word would be resiliency. I started with Steam in 2014 when we were a team of 7 people. We had a vision, we had an idea of what we wanted, but none of that worked right away, right? And we have gone through so many different facelifts and changes over the past, now 12 years, right, to get to where we are. And I just think, resiliency, drive, creativity are things that we really have focused on. I mean, we've provided so many different creative solutions for our customers and for our people, and given them a place to thrive. But, you talk about the market and the business that we're in, and there's so many ups and downs in our business. Just being resilient and being able to adapt with the changes are things that I'm extremely proud of, for where we've started from humble beginnings to where we are today.
Definitely. Now, anybody who's been in freight for the last 3 years, really 4 years, I'd say, objectively, I mean, you've seen some things, you've seen the highest of the highs, but you also seen some lows, right? You all have been able to navigate this so effectively, right? With your counterparts as well in the space. Talk to me about just the last 3 years. I mean, even from just not only a people standpoint, but just as a whole, continuing just to show up every day and be able to deliver for, those clients you were talking about, those enterprise shippers you were talking about, and continue the expectation at an all-time high.
Well, you talk about 3 years. I've been in the business almost 18, right? So I got in the business in 2008, 2009 era, housing crisis. I didn't know any different. All I knew was hey, it's hard to get customers. It's hard to find, it's hard to make a buck. It's hard to make margin. It's hard to find carriers. And I didn't know that I was in a downward market. And I got to a point about 2 years ago with my team where I just said, we're not talk about this anymore, because negativity creates more negativity, right? So when you stop talking about it, stop thinking about the things that you can't control, you can start focusing on what you can control. And what you can control is your attitude, your effort, your output every single day. And as a leader of a team that's going through difficult situations, I've learned how to just be extremely calm. Everybody looks to you for guidance. And when you are kind of high strung or you're kind of running around frantic, everybody else is going to think that, and they're going to follow your lead, right? So really just maintaining calm in stressful and pressure situations, being there for your team, understanding your team. I think one of the things that separates strong leaders that I've seen, especially during times of distress, is understanding that, hey, at one point I was this guy. I was this broker. I was in those shoes. And the problems that he has are things that I have had. And letting them know that, being an open door, they can come talk to you and they can understand that, hey, you've been in these shoes. You've been through these different markets, good and bad. And also knowing that no bad market lasts forever and no good market lasts forever. Right. So we have to sit here and look at where we are today and always think about where we're going. Yesterday's doesn't matter anymore. Last year doesn't matter anymore. And just keeping that forward thinking mindset is really, I think, how we've been able to thrive through what was very tumultuous times.
There were definitely tumultuous times. And, but the consistent theme was that Steam was always, you're looking at these lists, whether it's Inc. 5000, whether it's, other top 100 lists. Steam's name was in them, right? And just to be able to continually show up and show out, per se, has been a constant theme. So I think that's a testament to your leadership. I think that's a testament to the people that you guys have too.
And the people's the biggest part, right? We are some of our parts, right? And we're a people first company, and we never lose sight of that. And I think what separates, those that have grown in these markets is listening to your people. One of the things I like to read and listen to, leaders and entrepreneurs and things that they've done. And Sam Walton used to always say, if you want to know what's wrong with Walmart, you go talk to the guy stocking the shelves. Problems aren't solved in the boardroom, right? The guys that are on the floor, that are in the trenches every day, they're the ones that know what the issues are, know what problems need to be solved. So you have to listen to those people, and you have to not just hear them, listen to them and understand what can we do to make their job more efficient? What can we do to help them to get through these tough times?
That's awesome. I want to say, and there's a lot of different organizations and sizes of organizations right now. You have obviously your larger brokerages. You have your smaller brokerages. For those in this next iteration of the market, which I want to talk about the market and get your take on where we're at and where we're going. But what do people need to be doing right now? What's the one thing you think that, hey, like this needs to be the center of focus right now when talking about the market specifically?
The market specifically, I think the biggest center of focus for both brokerages, carriers themselves, and customers has got to be risk mitigation. Making sure, especially from a customer perspective, that they're partnering with carriers that have high standards, high vetting, and that they have proper dispatch procedures to help mitigate risk. I mean, over the last couple of years, fraud, theft, double brokering has run rampant in our business.
All-time high.
Yes. So making sure that you're aligned with the right carriers that fit within what you're trying to accomplish as an organization, and it's not always based upon price.
Yeah, it's not always based upon price. And there's something that I've always loved about you specifically that not a lot of our listeners know. You're a big relationship guy.
Absolutely.
How have you been able to cultivate that? And then, this is a relationship-based business.
100%.
It's just what it comes down to.
Yeah.
We've talked about it. It's like, your time at Access America. It's like indirectly, but directly, I wouldn't be in my seat today without some of the things you did back in 2014 and at Access,
Crazy to think about, kind of how that's all tied together, right?
Yeah.
Our business is vast. It's huge. I mean, there's 3 businesses in the world that touch everybody. It's technology, healthcare, and logistics. And for how vast and how large our industry is, it's very intimate. And being around the business as long as I have been around it, you start to see people that maybe move to different organizations, customer contacts that might move to a new customer, carrier dispatch contacts that might move to a new carrier. And you understand the value and the importance of trust, honesty, and relationships. You never want to burn a bridge in our business because you never know what is happening.
Never know.
I think some advice that I could give to a newer broker or a newer individual in our business is to never burn a relationship, because relationships are the basis of how we've grown and succeeded at Steam Logistics. A lot of customers I've had which is crazy in our business, over 10 years. They become friends. They become people that, I have great relationships outside of work with, and even on the carrier side too. So there's relationships internally, right? Relationships with your teammates, relationships with your leaders, and then if you're a leader, your subordinates, but then also relationships with your vendors, treating your carriers just as you'd like to be treated, and then making sure that your customers have that level of service and reliability, and that's how relationships are formed.
Absolutely. Domestic has changed so much, and I want to speak on that change because, again, I mean, you've been doing this since 2008. I mean,
2008, 2009.
That's about a 20-year.
Getting there. It's aging me a little bit. My gray hair's on the beard.
Hey, you're looking good, though, man. Talk to me about the evolution of domestic, because it's completely different today than I know back in 2008. But like even in the last 5 years,
sure,
there have been substantial changes right now. What do we need to know right now?
Well, I mean, you can go back 5 or 10 years and you could think about more of a transactional business that logistics was, right? You're using external load boards. You're trying to find the lowest cost provider. You're out there, dialing for dollars, as they would say, right? Making those check calls. Now it's become more of a strategic partnership business, especially with the evolution of AI and technology, right? It's allowed customers to have more, like FreightWaves, for example, more data, right? There's more things out there for them to see, and our business is a lot less transactional. And going back to the relationship piece, it's a lot more relationship and service based than I think it was maybe 5 to 10 years ago.
Now, this is a perfect segue because I want to talk about technology. Of course, Aziz, your team,
yes,
doing some
our CTO. Shout out to Aziz.
Shout out to Aziz. He's great. This next iteration of Steam, it's cool because I know the fabric will always be people-centered. Mm-hmm. But you combine technology with the people.
Yes.
That is like a recipe.
You're cooking with gas.
Gasoline.
Yeah.
How do you keep the people, but then also keep the technology and just this balance over time? How do you do that?
Well, I think you have to look at it from let's go back to like the .com era, right? And these businesses that went online, the Amazons of the world that were created, smartphones. People thought this is going to eliminate all these jobs. What it really did was it actually created new ones. And it created a different way of operating and a different way of, doing business and moving business forward. And I think with AI and what we're doing at Steam with our technology piece and our TMS piece is we're going to allow our brokers and our team to move more freight and with less manual work. I mean, no more 2 a.m. comp checks, no more 4 a.m. delivery calls, right? So if you think about 10 loads, you're moving 10 loads. 8 of those 10 loads are probably going to pick up and deliver without issue. 2 of those loads are going to go haywire. Our technology and AI elements are going to allow us to identify those 2 loads faster, be able to be more proactive in our updates and our response to our customer, be able to tackle those issues faster. So now an individual broker and an individual contributor that's moving 10 can now move 20 and really don't have to focus on 4 or 5 loads, because technology can take care of the rest. So I think it's going to allow our people to be more efficient. They're going to be able to add more value to their customers, be able to operate at a higher proficiency, and then ultimately make more money for themselves.
Oh, that's the holy trinity right there.
That's the goal.
Talk to me a little bit about the future, because we're talking about technology, but the future of brokerage, I mean, again, with your timeline, you've seen models in all different types, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's a Chicago model, whether it's a cradle model, whether it's, these split model. Like you've seen so many
independent agent models.
Yeah, agent model is now relevant. Yep. I mean, what does the future look like just in terms of brokerage? Because there's a lot of different ways that this can be attacked from just a domestic lens only.
Well, the future of brokerage, I think, one of the things that we have to be weary of is we have to be weary of not being so reliant on technology, right? You talk about relationships and you talk about, the technology piece, maybe operationally. We got to make sure that technology works, right? And I think that the way that we focus on filtering in technology piece by piece to provide value to our people and to our customers will allow us to really kind of set the new standard for the way that people are going to operate within this new world. I mean, when I got in the business, LinkedIn wasn't that big, right? Social media wasn't that big. There wasn't carriers out there posting things on YouTube and dispatchers going on YouTube and talking about the freight that they're trying to cover. That stuff didn't exist, right? It was, you're calling Walmart, you're sitting on the phone for 15 minutes trying to get somebody to answer so you can schedule appointments, right? Now there's all that's done online with portals. So these type of things are going to continue to grow and evolve. And I think that we just need to make sure that we're not so reliant on technology that there's still that human element within our business and within our industry, so that we can have a more seamless transition and more efficient operations for our customers.
There's a guy very well, and I know him too. His name's Jason Provencha.
Absolutely.
He always used to tell me, he was just like, how can we get better than what we did yesterday? Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about the improvement of brokerages as a whole, because brokerages aren't perfect, right? Like nothing is perfect.
It's not a one-size-fits-all business.
No,
right?
But what do you think are the areas of improvement? I'm not just saying about Steam, but as for brokerages as a whole, where can there be improvement across the board to maximize what a brokerage does for the business of trucking and supply chain and logistics?
Yeah, I think that there is a ton of opportunity for improvement. I think that the track and trace mechanism can be improved. I think that real-time updates can be improved. I think that just the layers and levels of communication can be improved. I feel like with the business that we're in, we have such a long runway ahead of us that there's so many advancements and improvements that are just going to evolve with people. But at the end of the day, it's about people, and it's about improving the processes for those people so they can execute, right? We can never lose sight with advancements in our business of the actual people that are driving the trucks, that are loading the trucks, that are dispatching the trucks, right? And improving the processes for them. Let me tell you a story. I went to go meet a customer, and this is the first time I've seen a warehouse that's fully robotic. And I walk in there, and it's like you have 10 people, and they're pressing a button, and they're sitting down, and literally the raw material's coming in, it's going through this machine, And then next thing you know, it's a pallet that's getting picked up by a forklift and out the door. And I start talking to the warehouse manager. I'm like, man, like, what happened to all the people that used to work here? And he goes, it's a touchy subject. I'm assuming it is, right? But I'm curious, genuinely curious. And he goes, well, we used to only operate 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Now we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Robots don't have to go to the bathroom. They don't have holidays, right? They don't celebrate Christmas. They don't have birthdays. And he goes, what it's done is it's allowed us to change our people without letting people go and create different roles so we can actually move more product and get more, innovation and get more freight out. And I think that brokerage as a whole is going to follow that suit, right, with innovation, right? There's autonomous trucks now, right? So there's going to be AI talking to a truck that there's no driver interaction involved at all. It's kind of scary to think about. But I think that, brokerage as a whole is going to innovate with the times and is going to create different opportunities than maybe I had when I started in the business, 17 years ago.
Talk about the next generation because the next generation is now. I mean, I'm starting to be kind of the old guy. Like I'm not the same guy that was, doing the check calls at 4 a.m. a couple of years ago. What does it mean for this next generation? Like, how can you inspire those that are, say, for example, a senior in college, right? Looking for that opportunity to jump into brokerage. Like, what does that look like now, just given that we are in 2026? We're in a different climate compared to when you got into the industry. When I got into the industry, it's just completely different.
Yeah, I like to talk about stories that I've lived, right? Because I have a lot of them now.
For sure.
And I remember one time I was at a recruiting fair in Minneapolis, and Target obviously is a massive employer in Minnesota. And there was a guy that I was standing in the elevator with, and we were going to the recruiting fair. He had no idea who I was, but I could tell he was a college graduate. And we're talking in the elevator, and when you've been in the business as long as I have, you can identify a broker, right? You can see somebody and be like, yeah, you smell it. And I looked at this guy and I'm like, I like him. I hope he comes to my booth. And I walk over, walking around the floor a little later, and I see there's a line of about 80 kids waiting to talk to Target. And he's standing in line. So I talked to him and I said, hey, do you want to be one of 80 or do you want to be yourself? And he said, well, what do you mean? And I brought him over and I explained to him what we do. I hired that individual, and then he worked for me for 3 years. He learned the business, he learned brokerage, and then he ended up getting a director role at Target. And who knows, if he had started at Target, he could have got to the same path. But I think that our business opens up so many doors and so many different avenues that people don't understand how many different things you can do within logistics. And brokerage is such a great area to start because you're going to learn all different facets of it. Right? You're going to be understanding what the customer's demands are, what the carrier's demands are, what these people are going through on the road, what the shipper and the receiver need, what are good times to schedule appointments, what are good lanes, what are bad lanes, what are difficult lanes, right? What are difficult modes? So like for the younger seniors, they're looking to, get into a new industry or an industry that's done very well for me and my family and done very well for a lot of my peers, is looking at a business as to how many people can my business touch, right? You can only touch so many people in so many different industries. But in technology, healthcare, and logistics, you can touch every soul on earth. And I think with that, it allows people, it shows people that there are so many different possibilities that maybe they don't think about when they think about a truck driving down the road.
It's fantastic, Jeff. I could talk to you for the next 3 hours and not get tired, but I just want, if we had 30 seconds to leave somebody with something, what would you leave them with from you and what you've learned and what is coming for you and STEAM as well?
Well, what I can leave them with here is just understand that our business is constantly evolving and be open to change and listen to your people, right? Listen to what people are going through and understand, and never always be where you are, right? Never forget where you came from. Never forget what you did to get to the position that you're in, whether it's a college graduate that's just starting and they had to go through school to get to where they are, or it's a leader in an organization that's been there 20, 25 years. Like, always be listening and evolving with the people. The people change, but the business stays the same. Right. So make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on, that you're engaging with your people, that you're relatable to your people, that you're open door, that you'll listen to your people and they'll feel that they're heard. And I think that if you can do that as a leader, that you are going to see, you're going to drive a very high performing team and a team that's going to be very loyal to you for a long period of time.
I love that. Again, the newly appointed president of Domestic, Mr. Jeff Wood. This has been the keynote for the Domestic Supply Chain Summit. Cannot thank Jeff enough for being able to come out and speak with us. We're going to have much more content on the way here at the summit, so stick around. And again, I'm Malcolm Harris with FreightWaves. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to the Domestic Supply Chain Summit for 2026. I'm FreightWaves reporter Noe Mahoney, and I'm excited because today we're going to be talking about the multiplier effect, why a single AI agent is the ultimate return on investment for logistics. Joining me for this conversation is Jonah McIntyre, the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Trimble. Jonah, thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
And before we jump into the conversation, can you just talk a little bit about your background and what you do at Trimble?
Sure. I lead the product and engineering for Trimble Transportation. So it's like a chief product officer and chief technology officer combination. Everything related to deciding what our products should do, to making sure they actually accomplish their goals is embodied in there. My background's always been in supply chain management and logistics. I helped run logistics for Build-A-Bear Workshop at the start of my career, and then helped create and run a number of products in our industry at Manhattan Associates, at the logistics provider Panalpina, at several companies. I created my own that were acquired, one to GT Nexus and one to Transporion. And then I was part of Transporion when we were acquired by Trimble.
So you're right there on the sort of cutting edge of technology and transportation over the past decade or so.
Yeah. My first company I created was at the intersection of cloud computing and logistics tech. And it was back in those days when people in the first meetings would say, well, I'm not sure. Can you really trust cloud? Can you really trust the internet? I'm not sure if I want my data on the internet. Now nobody, I think, really blinks at that. And then my second company was at the application of AI to spot negotiations, but it was, way pre-Chat GPT. So it began in 2016. And then now I'm very much focused on the generative AI and sort of like highly intelligent agents doing a broad degrees of work rather than just a single job.
Yeah, and as you know, everybody in our industry, transportation industry, is talking about AI and AI agents. And so I guess I wanted to start our conversation off with, how does the concept of a single AI agent, differ from traditional sort of dashboards and predictive models that we've been using for the last decade or so?
Yeah. So if you compare agents to things like price predictions, ETA predictions, those sort of things, I mean, their main hallmark difference is that they can do reasoning and they have common sense. So in the past, when we talked about machine learning or data science, you had to have an abundance of data and had to be quite clean, actually, because you were doing calculations on it. When we talk about generative AI, you're talking about messy text or voice data, or images or videos, stuff that software just couldn't handle really until a couple of years ago. And when we talk about agents, you're talking about things that can go and take action. They can come up with their own plans and go take action in the world, just like a human being would. So they don't have to be given this prescribed like workflow or thing to do. They can come up with their own, based on goals, they can come up with their own way to accomplish the goal and then go use tools to accomplish it. And then the last point would be around why have a single agent versus, multiple agents, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's a big topic, single agent versus, as you said, multiple agents. So I guess what does a safe and powerful agent actually look like in practice? Would you say is it a bot, a workflow, or is it something even deeper than that?
Yeah, it is bigger than that. So we have been living with AI agents as colleagues for the last year and a half within the company. We more than 2 years ago decided the right way for us to proceed was to build and transform ourselves before we tried to bring anything to market. We wanted to kind of test the medicine on ourselves first. And one of our realization when we got to about the sixth or seventh agent that we had built to replace roles in our company was this sort of wake up moment where we said, all right, you're either going to have one agent or you're going to have a million of them. Because if every one of the agents is only doing one job, so let's say you made a dispatch agent and then separately you made a order entry agent, and then, separate from that, you made an invoice generation agent, and you made another one that's like a chasing payment agent. Well, that list is going to get pretty big pretty fast. And also most things in the real world kind of bleed into another thing in the real world. So where one ends and another begins, there's going to be a coordination effort. And so when we looked at this, we said, all right, if there's 1,000 of these agents, there's an agent selection problem where somebody has to pick out which agent they want to use. And then there's a coordination problem. Like, haven't you ever had the thing happen where you're talking to one agent about something? Let's say you're talking to an agent about a change to a customer contract, and you're talking to another agent about maybe an invoicing issue you're having with that customer, and they're not aware of each other. The conversations, you end up having to copy paste from one to the other to keep them in sync. Those are kind of problems that we found when we were trying to live with them. And what we decided was that the best and most stable solution was to have one agent that has a skills catalog, and it can do all these things. So you don't have to choose which agent you want to work with. You don't have to kind of keep them in sync with each other. You don't have to try to dovetail from one to the next during a workflow. So that's why we shifted to having one agent with a skills catalog that allows it to do many things. And I think the hallmark here is that it means that in your whole company, you really just have like literally one agent. So if you're a company that used Gemini or ChatGPT or Copilot or something in the past, and you adopt this agent replaces that, but it also replaces every other little single workflow agent that you have in your company because it can do all those things.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so I'm curious if a company were to adopt that single agent strategy, today, what do you think their operation would look like, say, in 4 or 5 years, 2030, compared to, a competitor who is stuck with traditional automation or the multiple agents that you were talking about?
Yeah, I doubt very much if in 4 or 5 years, kind of long time in these horizons, this domain, but let's stick with it. I doubt very much if somebody in 4 or 5 years would tolerate having a lot of little baby agents that only do one thing. Because again, if every task in your company, for you, for example, if preparing for an interview, keeping notes during the interview, writing the initial draft, reviewing the editorializing of the draft, submitting it for approval and getting feedback from your, other editors or the chain of approval, scheduling into publication, and then like gathering information on how does the public react to your journalism. If every one of those required you to go to a different place and interact with a different agent, it's hard to see how you'd get much efficiency, because while the task itself might be automated, the bottleneck just becomes the coordination between these little agents, and you're going to spend, essentially the same amount of total time during the day. You're just going to be surfing back and forth between these tabs or something to try to get them to do what you want them to do. I think it's way more compelling to imagine an agent that is your sort of sidekick across every single task you do, including things like, maybe you want to check on the healthcare policy of your company because you're going to have a minor surgery and you want to see what the out-of-pocket expenses are, or whether the company has a leave policy for that. Again, you don't want to go to the HR agent or the whatever the benefits agent and have to ask that question. You want to have this assistant or this junior colleague who's kind of there with you all the time, and you ask them anything and they go and figure it out for you, do the thing, and that's it. So I think that's the difference. I think one looks more like every person who gets hired in your company is given a second person they're hired who's almost like a executive assistant who will do anything you ask them to do. The other one looks like a proliferation of little tools or calculators or something that, while useful for a single task, doesn't really change the headcount required at the company.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you described a lot what my day is like: writing an article and, getting feedback, making sure all the information is correct. But that was a really good summation of my day. But you also jumped into my next question just a little bit, which was, the title of our chat is The Ultimate Return on Investment. And beyond just saving time, how does a single agent, would you say, creates like a multiplier effect, across different departments at the same company, like procurement, dispatch, freight audit? How do you see that multiplier effect?
Yeah, for larger companies, a substantial amount of effort internally is done on either coordinating people to get them to behave in a coordinated way on a single topic, or finding the right person who can do a task, right? Like this absorbs a not insignificant amount of energy at companies, and there's a lot of things that simply never get done because out of almost sheer exhaustion, people give up trying to find the right person to do it, or to get an agreement among a large group of people to do it. So these are ways where you get a real lift out of having a single agent. A single agent can be in contact and coordinate things among everyone in the company in a way that a lot of little baby agents wouldn't be able to do, right? That's one way. But I think the most straightforward return on investment from adopting our single powerful agent is that it does replace labor. Like it does what a person could do, but faster and cheaper. There's also the side benefits of it follows your policy, so you don't have to worry about it, kind of going off on its own and doing something that like a human would do. Like, it doesn't get burnout. It's not trying to angle for its next promotion, those sort of elements. But the bottom line is it's just more efficient. It does jobs that humans would do, but faster and cheaper.
That's really interesting. And again, you led into my next question is, logistics is often a game of or industry of exceptions. So how does an agentic system move from, alerting a human, say, about a delay to resolving that delay or issue autonomously? That's a big leap.
Yeah. There's for anything like this, you can divide it into sensing the environment, coming up with a plan, and executing the plan. These are sort of classic categories from robotics, where you have perception, planning, and execution. So on the perception side, just like a human, the way an agent would detect that something's going wrong is they are tied into the tools of the company. So they're looking at things like the visibility information and the dispatch logs and or the telematics of the trucks if it's in trucking, the status updates if it's ocean and air transportation, the incoming order feeds, like all the stuff that a human being would normally be able to check. This is almost entirely part of the electronic environment, right? So they're using those same tools to gather information. Then when it detects this gap between, how things are supposed to be and how they are, it needs to come up with a plan of how to resolve it. And that can be iterative. So a lot of times the plan involves going and getting more information. Case in point might be, we have a delivery, which is not yet marked as delivered, but it's past the window when it's supposed to be delivered. And so you don't actually immediately know whether this is, de facto a delayed delivery. Like perhaps it's just a delayed status update. So it's actually the physical goods have been delivered, but you haven't got the signal back that's been delivered. Or maybe it is a delay, but the truck is just sitting in a queue waiting for kind of unload, and it's not the logistics providers fault's their problem, but it's not their fault. And there's like a good paper trail behind that to show, in fact, they arrived on time and they just haven't been unloaded. So these are things where the agent, just like a human, would seek out new information or contact somebody to get new information because it doesn't exist yet. And then finally, it's going to take that information, it's going to synthesize it into a plan. And the plan can have kind of two components. You can have in the moment actions where you say, okay, we are genuinely running late. We need to contact the customer and tell them what's the new ETA. Or it might be, we actually unloaded, and the action plan is I need to update the status to say that delivery is taking place. But there's also this reflection aspect of it's more like root cause analysis. Okay, what about this is a broader lesson that is not just about this particular situation, but is about the way that we got to this situation, and how can that be resolved for future similar situations, and then can enact those changes. Can go and use the systems environments, but you can also do things like rewrite standard operating procedures at the company and then ask somebody to approve that new SOP or start a training program for them, those sort of things.
Yeah, I think that's such a interesting aspect of AI agents when it can move from, as we talked about, alerting to actually solving the problems autonomously and or letting you know that I solved this problem or did this, and that's going to be a really big benefit to companies.
Yeah. And the transition, most people think of when they think about AI agents, they're thinking about something like a chatbot where its only ability in the world is to tell you words, typically in text, sometimes in voice. But we're way past that. Right. The when we talk about agents, we mean things that can go and use tools in the world, like go make changes in the world. And so, the same way the right way to think about AI agents is just employees. You hire them to do the same way you hire an employee. They're paid in a similar way, kind of per hour of work, not like a subscription or something per year. So they can go do what people would do, and that includes going and using tools to get jobs done.
Yeah, and I'm sure this, and I've seen this a lot, is a lot of companies, I shouldn't say a lot, but some companies still use what I guess you would call sort of like a Frankenstein, tech stack.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess is there a hidden cost, or what are hidden costs of running that, sort of disconnected, multiple operation compared to running, one unified agentic operation?
Yeah. So in many ways, adding an AI agent is kind of a shortcut to unifying systems. So let's take a concrete example. Let's say that a company doesn't have, a fully unified system of record environment where their rates, their dispatch planning, their driver management, their accounting, kind of order to cash processes, their payroll. That's not all, that's different systems. Everything I just mentioned is like completely different system. And maybe some of it, the system is Google Sheets or Excel. So it's, kind of, it's a system, but isn't a very dedicated system. Well, one of the hacks to this is that AI agents can go use multiple systems and just use them, just keep them in sync, right? An interesting thought experiment is like for humans, if you had to have, say, 20 tabs open on your browser, and every time you did a job, you went through 5 of those tabs. So every job had a different 5, and you had to like remember which of the 5 to open and which steps are done in each of those 5. That would be very taxing on you over the course of a day. Every modern application is kind of trying to get your attention in a certain way. So you open up, let's take your email. You open up your email and you've got your unread emails in bold, right? Or something like that. They're in a different section of your email. And the idea is that the email application is trying to get your attention to focus on those unread emails. But if you're in the middle of a workflow where you're trying to look up an email that maybe arrived last week about a delayed invoice, you're fighting the system. So as you switch the browser tab, and you get into that application, you have this momentary like, okay, what was I trying to do here again? And then you're like, okay, I remember, I'm trying to look up this invoice, and you go and search for the invoice and you find it. And then let's say you go to your order to cash system, your invoice management system. When you arrive there, you might see a list of exceptions by default, because that's what that system wants you to focus on. And you again have this like, okay, wait, what was I here for? Okay, yeah, that's right. I was here for this invoice that I sent out last week, and it's not an exception status, but I'm being asked a question about it. So now you got to like go search for that. My point here is that for humans, it's very tiring to have all these systems, but for an AI agent, it doesn't mean anything at all. Like they might as well, for them, it could be 1 tab or 100 tabs. You could have the color scheme and the navigation and everything change on every step. Doesn't mean anything. So it's kind of a secret sauce maneuver here of properly deployed AI agent can almost unify these systems for their workflows, or, for the relevant workflows, because they're just not kind of impacted by these user experience, graphic user experience elements that I just talked about.
Yeah, that's a really great point about how having so many tabs open on your desktop, and I'm guilty of this, how it can lead to confusion. You forget what you're doing.
Yeah.
How that single agent, can keep track of that much better.
Yeah.
And
like agents have infinite memory, essentially. There's bounds on this. So in a technical sense, it's not infinite, but it's, for all practical human purposes, it looks like infinite memory. So I for example, probably have 20 tabs open at once, and I'll forget why I had a tab open. Mm-hmm. And then when I kind of go to clean it up at the end of the day or end of the week, I'll open the tab and I'll have this momentary, like, well, okay, well, why did I leave this open again? Leaving it open for me means I have something to do on it, but I can't remember what. And it takes me a bit of time to get into it. Agents don't have that. They don't, there's no loss in that remembering how and why step.
Yeah, definitely. And sort of rolling into the next question is for, logistics people, giving an AI the agency to make decisions like, rerouting or booking or spot rate. That's sort of a big leap and a scary thing for many. So how can we ensure that those agents, stay within sort of safe guardrails, when they're making those decisions?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is AI agents are going to be safer than people by far, right? Not even close. So if you're willing to give, I'm not talking about like giving your spouse. I'm talking like if you run a business, think about how little time you spend with somebody before you start trusting them. You do a round of interviews or something. That's maybe 6 hours of contact time with somebody before their first day at work. Then end of a couple days at work, they're starting to touch things, starting to make an impact. You'll know that person. Like, there's a lot of trust that goes into this. AI agents are way less likely to make mistakes or to not just the accidental mistakes, but the more pernicious ones, which are things that they may just disagree with the way the company wants to operate, or they've got their own career or whatever connections that they want to prioritize. And so all those things are alleviated with using agents. Beyond that, you can put in guardrails. For example, for our agent, you can put in policies at the company level that say there is a certain way we want to work. To give you a concrete example on this, just like if you were to go to ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok or one of these tools, and you were to say, "Hey, I want you to help me plan how to commit fraud," it'll refuse. It'll say, I'm not allowed, or my policies don't allow me to help you break the law. Like, it'll just tell you that, right? But if you ask like Gemini or ChatGPT to help you work around or manipulate your company's sick leave policy, like, it'll do that. You upload the PDF and you say, "Hey, I want to find a way that I can maybe be out sick for 6 days and then come back for half a day and then leave again for another 6 days, and that resets the clock," or something. Help me find a way to cheat this sick leave policy, and it'll do it with you. Now, if you look at our agent allows companies to set their own policies in place. And one of the straightforward policies that we use internally is the agent shouldn't be used to help violate our company, our company policies. So you can set guardrails on what sort of decisions it can make on its own before it needs to seek approval, what tasks it's allowed to use it for. Maybe you want to say, "Hey, you can't use this for your personal, you're like doing your personal taxes or something." Because that's not what it's for, and you're running up cost or something. You could also set guardrails on cost, because all these tools, they cost money as you're using them. So it's not just a fixed monthly subscription. And so you can set guardrails that say, "Hey, when this person has spent $100 in a month, I want to be notified," or $500 a month, and set cutoffs. So there's a lot of ways to make it safer and more more comfortable for somebody first experimenting with delegating work to an agent.
Yeah, and so in the chance that an agent does make a mistake, how does the system learn? What does the management of an AI agent look like for sort of a non-technical logistics manager?
It looks identical. The catch here for all of this is this looks identical to having an employee. So, when we talk about how does this thing take action in the real world, it's the same way an employee would take action in the real world, right? It sends emails, it makes phone calls, it uses your systems, uses your TMS, your invoice management system, all that stuff. It logs into your bank account to check if there's been payments, does all that stuff, right? So then it's like, well, how do I build trust in the system? Same way you build trust in a person. Like, you give them a clear job to do, you give them guardrails that say, for example, like, I don't want you to approve any changes to invoices without checking with me first, right? And then after a period of time, you might say, "Okay, I think you can approve changes to invoices up to $1,000 a day, and then above that, I want you to come check with me," something like that. So you can build. Now, the way you have this feedback loop when it does something wrong is the same thing you do with a human. Human managers are often taught to give feedback in what's called a situation behavior impact framework, where you say, like, in the following situation, like we were in a meeting with a prospective customer. That's the situation yesterday. So we were in a meeting with a prospective customer. Your behavior in the meeting is that you talked about one of our other customers by name, right? And the impact is that, first off, we gave away information which we're not allowed to give away because we have non-disclosure agreements. It's supposed to be private information, right? And the second is that the prospective customer became uneasy because they were thinking, well, if I work with you, you're going to name drop me the same way you name drop this other person. So you do this, you're giving constructive feedback by saying, or negative feedback, it's critical, but you're giving constructive feedback by saying, in the following situation, your behavior was the following way and the impact was negative. And here is how I would like you to behave differently in the future. And you give it's just like a manager giving negative feedback to an employee. You give them the feedback, and then you give them the feedback, and then you say, like, now I want you to explain to me in your own words what, don't just parrot what I said. Give me back in your own words what you learned from the situation. And then if they give you the wrong, response, you go, now wait, okay, we're still not agreeing with each other here. Let's go back. But if they give you, they say, okay, when meeting with a customer, I was excited to talk about this other customer, but I named them, and I shouldn't have done that because now it degrades trust, and anyway, it's against our policies. You go, okay, great. So same process as the human you use with an agent. I know that sounds odd, but it's like these agents are human-ish. They're human-like intelligence, human-like behavior, and therefore you manage them like humans.
Yeah, I think it's you hit it right on the point. An AI agent, treat an AI agent just like an employee, like you would another employee.
Yeah. Yeah, same. And that extends to other things like how do you work with the agent? It's like, well, you invite them to meetings, and you chat with them in your Google Chat or your Slack or whatever you use, your Teams meetings or whatever that is. Like how do customers get to use them? You invite them to Zoom calls or whatever you use. I mean, it really isn't all that much more complicated than just you have a new employee, they're an agent. They can't meet you physically, of course, but they can meet you in all the digital places that a modern company uses to interact with their employees.
Well, Jonah, I think we're just about out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a really interesting conversation. I love talking about technology. If somebody wants to learn more about Trimble, where should they go?
Well, our website would be a good start. You can also get started with our agent directly at arc.trimble.com if you're interested. But otherwise, I'd recommend you go through our website and reach out to us directly.
All right. Thank you so much, Jonah.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of What the Truck. It is a lovely day here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I am your host, Malcolm Harris. It is Wednesday, June 17th, and I am joined by my man, my partner in crime, the dude, limousine riding, jet flying, the man with the plan, Mr. Michael Vincent.
What's up, brother?
Hi, sir.
It's good to see you, man.
What's up, brother?
I love that shirt. Aaron
love
Rodgers,
you.
huh?
Aaron Rodgers. Shout out to Fanatics, man. This is
Couldn't afford the Joe Namath.
couldn't afford the Joe Namath, man.
Damn.
You know, we gotta redo the contract here at Freightways. You know, y'all got me an old school Aaron Rodgers, man. This jersey, it had 2 seasons on it. The first season was all of 7 minutes. He tore his Achilles.
Yeah, that's right.
The second one, he looked like a shell of himself.
He is a
I
shell
think
of
this
himself.
jersey it shows
But
adversity and it shows cost saving.
He's milking that name for as much money as he can get out.
You know, that's what he's gonna
And
do.
people are paying it.
Do you like Aaron Rodgers as a person?
I don't know him.
Yeah.
I've never met the guy.
That is the realest answer I've ever heard.
I have no idea.
Just straight up, I don't know him.
I don't know the dude.
I don't know him. It's okay.
I enjoyed watching him play.
Yeah.
I think he should hang it up. I don't understand. Does he need the money?
I don't know why he's
Why
still
go through the abuse? I mean, I can go out there and suck.
Yeah, for sure. But
For half the
guess
money.
He's getting paid
Steelers, give me a call.
He's getting paid $20 million to go suck.
I can go out there and throw interceptions. And
Easy,
suck.
easy.
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake.
You know what? I can successfully hand the ball off too.
Yeah.
Listen, 8th grade quarterback.
Yeah.
Undefeated season.
Really?
That's right.
Man, 8th grade,
Look it up.
Offensive
George Junior
guard.
High, Mentor, Ohio.
8th grade, offensive guard,
Yeah.
defensive tackle, defeated season. We didn't win a game, brother.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we didn't win a game in 8th grade.
You throwing those Olay blocks?
I'm telling you, I was
Olay.
our quarterback just did not have the smarts and the
Didn't have it.
He just didn't have it, man.
Yeah.
But these guys have it today.
I was
And
too stupid not to just run into people and
really
just keep going.
Were you a mobile threat?
More than throwing? Hell yeah.
Yeah. You were gonna take it.
And I wasn't good at it. I was just willing to hit the guy harder than the other guy was willing to hit me. That's all.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. Get it done.
If you guys are feeling, you guys see this in the bottom. What is that? Right corner. Something different. It's a different look.
What is it? Oh, yeah. What is that?
We are at the Domestic Supply Chain Summit. So we are live from the Domestic Supply Chain Summit. Really excited for today's conversations. We're not going to go through the headlines like we typically do. This is going to be a little bit of a different type of what the truck, but
Darren.
I know. We're not going to do what we normally do, but it's still going to be fun, and we're still going to bring you guys some great content.
Yeah, we are.
We have 3 great guests, and let's talk through each and every single one of them, all right?
Let's do it.
With this on deck, all right, we have 3 folks again. It's going to be leading off for us is going to be Tom Hurwich, all right? He is from Basis Solutions, and he's joining us to talk about what it actually means to operationalize data instead of just exchange it, all right? So with Tom and as well as the group at Basis Solutions, very vital to what we're doing here today at the summit, and excited for him to lead off our conversation, and I think it is going to be awesome. And then you guys will see some familiar faces on the show, and I'm excited to get to both of them. I recently saw this guy and his team in the airport in Cleveland, Ohio, fresh off of the Freight Fraud Symposium.
Cleveland.
Really wish I got more time with him, so now it makes sense to have him back on the show. My man, Mr. Andrew, not Wimmer, but Weimer, man. He is coming to us from Descartes. He's breaking down what brokers need to be doing most right now, post, of course, the Montgomery.
You didn't call him Wimmer, did you?
No. Well, I did, I think.
And now you're correct.
In my head, I called him Wimmer.
Okay.
But no, I know it's Andrew Weimer, and I'll never forget it because
There's
I was
not
like,
2 M's there.
No. It's like, Malcolm, be a professional. Like act like you
Been here before?
yeah, you've been here before. And
Like
be a hard
Aaron
worker.
Rodgers?
For sure. And this guy, who's going to just end the show for us, we had a conversation, and this was a few weeks on What the Truck.
He's our anchor leg.
He's our anchor leg.
This is
He's
where
the
crowd starts
closer.
going, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We just did not get enough out of the meal. We didn't get enough off the bone when you're eating the wing. So with that, Andre Tretenko from Verified Carrier is here. He's back. And we're going to talk about a few things, pick up on some other questions that we left off from his last interview. But really, we're here to talk about why the pickup moment is still the most vulnerable point in the supply chain. All right, so between Andrew, as well as Tom, one heck of a show on the way.
Do you eat all the little wing parts and save the drums
Okay, let's
when you eat your wings?
let's talk about this. I am a drum guy.
Yeah.
I think
So when you
flats-
get some,
Yeah.
do you eat all the wings so that you got the best for last?
yes, I will.
I do that.
I will. I can't stand a flat. I think a flat.
I like
is-
the flats though. I do.
I don't, and I know, I'll probably be very looked at in the wing eating community as a weirdo. But I think a flat
well,
is just
there's
redundant.
more reasons for that than just the wings.
Are you a ranch or blue cheese guy or none?
None, no. Mm-mm.
You don't do
Sauce them. No, put the hot sauce on them and eat.
Yeah, I'm a blue cheese guy.
So are you one of these guys just puts the whole thing in your mind?
100%.
When it comes out
100%
clean.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today's a Wednesday. We could go eat wings if we needed to at Parkway or something like that.
You can eat wings whenever.
Yeah,
you don't
you
need
can.
to eat wings.
Yeah, well,
you just eat them. Make it happen.
The people bringing us, again, the Domestic Supply Chain Summit, let's talk about sponsors because we wouldn't be here without.
We got sponsors?
Yes, we do. Our regional sponsors are going to be Trimble, as well as Envoy AI for content. Our demo sponsor is going to be Basis Solutions. Thank you guys so much for making this happen today. Without y'all, this would not be possible. We really, really do appreciate each and every single one of you guys. I want to give some reminders about some upcoming events. All right, we have a few that we want to talk about. I'm not going to go into detail about each and every single one of them. Of course, we have been pounding the table. We're less than a month out from the Supply Chain AI Symposium. That's going to be July 15th in Chicago. Guys, the best decision makers and the best conversations will be happening here in Chicago at the old post office. Chicago, indeed. This is going to be fantastic. Tickets are on sale now, so make sure you guys meet us. We will be in Chicago, July 15th for the Supply Chain AI Symposium. This is going to be fantastic. All right. Then
Are they getting that background music I was kind of put on?
No. It came through loud.
What's better, Chicago, that Thailand town, or Sweet Home Chicago?
Sweet Home Chicago.
Yeah,
for sure.
right.
For sure. Come on. On FreightWaves TV, we're going to have a couple of things as well. The Future of Rail Symposium is going to be July 28th. This is going to be a fantastic event. It's going to be, again, virtual on FreightWaves TV, so make sure that you guys subscribe to that. That will be fantastic. And then coming up in September on the 23rd is the Enterprise Fleet Summit, an event very similar to today's, and that is going to be, again, on September 23rd. Now, I do want to make a reminder that one attendee will win a Garmin Approach R10 at today's summit.
What?
This is
Am I considered an attendee?
I don't think you can win this, but look at that bad boy. That is fantastic. So we're going to get that into motion sooner rather than later. But again, an attendee of today's summit.
Do we get to announce it?
I'm not sure if we get
No,
to
it doesn't
announce
look like it.
I don't think so.
11:30 a.m.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will know at 11:30 a.m. and then we will be sure to get that information out to the public. But thank you guys so much for just being here at the summit today. All right. So with that, let's get started with our conversations because it feels weird. We're not going straight into the news. You guys can check out the news on a special episode of FreightWaves today, happening at 12 p.m. Eastern. I might make a costume change. I have to sit in for Mr. Craig Fuller, but I'll be joined by Julie Vandekamp.
He'll be
and it's going
changing.
to be
He'll be changing his
awesome.
clothes.
Yeah, I'll be changing my clothes for sure.
He will.
Let's change topics and conversations because now, again, joining us as the principal and founder at Basis Solutions, you are officially on the clock. Welcome to the show, Mr. Tom Hurwicz. Tom, hello, sir.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you as well. How's everything going? Thanks so much for being here.
Good.
Awesome.
What's up,
Beautiful
Tom?
day down here in Charleston. Nice to meet you, Michael.
Very nice to meet you, sir. You know, I went to Mercyhurst University, and every once in a while we get classes canceled because of snow.
Yeah.
It's right in the middle of the snow belt. It's like right there.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. But, you know, Tom, he went to William and Mary.
Oh, prestigious.
And a little bit crazy because, dude, like their classes, when they got interrupted, is because like the British invaded.
No,
Right?
no.
Or like the Civil War was going, no, these are true. Like they had to suspend classes like, hey, Tom, you going to economics? Nah, British invaded, dude. Gonna hang. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I used to cut class to play Madden. You know, he actually cut class for real substantial reasons. But that's
Who did?
It's me. You
To
know?
play Madden?
Yeah, for sure.
You see, what day we didn't have that when I was in college. There
That's
was
the difference between
we were dying of dysentery on the Oregon Trail when I was in
That's the difference between a William and Mary education and a University of Tennessee education.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. You were interrupted because the still blew up or something like that on Rocky Top.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. Well, Tom, thank you again for being here. I really do appreciate it, and I want to jump into this right now. Systems and sharing information. What does this mean and why is it such a fundamental shift for the industry? Because you believe that the next evolution is operationalizing data instead of simply just exchanging it, correct?
Yeah. You know, we see that problem in the, you know, our foundation is in the intermodal space, and we see that problem, you know, kind of all the way through the entire value chain. So, did I lose you guys? feel like I.
No, you are here with
there?
us. We got you. We got you.
You're here. We got you.
Right.
Perfect.
You guys disappeared off my screen here for a second. Yeah, no, it's, there's a lot of data exchange has been a big thing, right, for decades. But there's a lot of gaps in the systems that we've been addressing at Basis, and what we're finding with working with some Fortune 500 companies is that that still exists even there. Again, data can be exchanged quite readily, but the data is coming through on Excel spreadsheets and being worked manually. So a lot of what we're doing at Basis is identifying those gaps and filling those to improve efficiency.
I once had somebody send me a fax copy of a spreadsheet. I was like, for real? And then I had somebody else, they hid like columns in it, They didn't delete them. They just hid them, expand columns, and there's all the data you weren't supposed to see. Right? It's insane. It's insane how things are changing. But so you guys are working with some major beverage companies, right, that are rethinking supply chain. Now, without giving away the secret sauce or Coke, did I say Coke?
You definitely did.
That was just a slip of the tongue, a Freudian slip. Why are these companies looking at this, and what do you see in the trends that you're seeing in these large shippers today that are trying to change these networks?
Well, I think their challenges are that their supply chain is 30, 40, 50 years old, right? Nothing has changed in a number of decades. And with the advent of obviously the latest technology and some of the challenges, they're in a very competitive landscape, with a lot of competition, a lot of price competition. They're looking for every advantage, and part of that, and something that may have been overlooked in the past, is getting their product to market. So the large brand that we're working with, our targets are, one, reducing cost, reducing dwell time in storage, at distribution sites to make sure their product is fresher when it gets to market, and getting that data back to them so that they can better understand their demand, because there's a lot of blind spots out there.
Tom, historically, trucking, warehousing, inventory management, and intermodal have all kind of operated independently. Now, what opportunities exist when those systems and kind of entities become fully integrated amongst each other?
Well, I think that's a great question, Malcolm. And that's exactly what we're working on, right? So our approach at Basis is to think of things holistically, to use a buzzword bingo term. It's to look at things, from we like to say, loads are looked at from A to B. We look at them from A to Z, right? So we look at everything that's happening, not just in that individual delivery of a single load, but what's happening next, right? And that's really the challenge for the logistics space, right? Is when a container is transloaded, for example, into a 53-foot dry van, there's inefficiencies there. There's dwell time, while cross docking. There's maybe there's open space in the dry van, things like that. So we're looking at every little sort of nook and cranny to make sure that all truckloads are optimized, and that product is moving as efficiently as possible to the end user.
So talking about autonomous decision making and the friction points between the different modes of transportation, which is intermodal, right? It means different modes.
For sure.
It doesn't. A lot of people think it means one thing, like it's trains. No, it's across different stuff, right?
Shout out to you.
There's a lot of people trying to automate those friction points, obviously, and you as well in data. What does autonomous supply chain, what does that actually look like? Because, I envision all these robots moving around and stuff like that, but they have to be fueled with intelligent decision making, right?
Right. Yeah, and from our perspective, it's not autonomous trucks, right?
Right.
That might be something that's coming down the road, but we're probably, in my opinion, probably decades away from that. But when we talk about autonomous supply chains, what we're really talking about is decision making being made in the software, in the algorithm, regarding, well, I'll give you the best example, which is the client that we're working with. Basically, what we're putting in play are distribution points. We're putting in play manufacturing sites, They make product in a number of different locations nationwide. They can make the same product in multiple spots. So what we're looking at is that sort of flexibility in their supply chain to say, okay, well, it doesn't make sense making it here. It actually makes sense making it over here because rates, freight rates are lower going this direction. So we're going to move this demand from one site, from site A to site B, until we see a shift again in freight rates, and then we're going to look at that decision once again. But we're going to do this on an ongoing basis. That's really what the autonomous supply chain is all about. So, the hard part implementing that will be finding partners that are willing to not have a lane be consistently, whatever the case might be, 200 runs per month, but 150 maybe from one location, 50 from another, and that may change month to month or quarter to quarter.
Tom, I guess the final question from us is, it's kind of a twofold question. As supply chains continue to evolve over time, what do you think that leaders in the space should be doing today to prepare for tomorrow? And then if you could leave just one overarching theme from today's conversation that you really want to drive home for folks here at the summit, what would that be?
Well, I think supply chain leaders should be focused on finding the technology that works best for them. There's a lot of talk about agentic. There's a lot of talk about neural networks and whatnot. And we like to approach this, from a kind of horses for courses perspective. I mean, there's AI baked into every one of our products, but it could be an LLM, it could be machine learning, it could be a little bit deep learning, et cetera, et cetera. Find what works for you. It's not about what's kind of hot right now. It's about what makes sense for your business. And Malcolm, can you repeat that second question? Because I think I probably lost it.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say, if you could leave somebody with one just overarching theme from yourself as well as Basis, what would that be here today at the summit?
I would say embrace the change. I think there's a lot of fear out there about what AI can do, but I think AI in its sort of purest form, I suppose, is all about helping us, right? It's eliminating some of the wasteful tasks like Bullseye does, connecting trucking companies with containers that need to get back to the port before their last free day, prioritizing those containers. Those are powerful things. It's a small thing, but it's a powerful thing that can save companies, millions of dollars per year because it's a gap in the supply chain. So look for those gaps and embrace the technology for what it is.
It's fantastic stuff. Tom Hurwicz again, principal and founder at Basis Solutions. Tom, thank you so much just for being here, and again for Basis Solutions as well, for all the work you guys are doing.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you as well. Peace. All right. Next, we're going to roll right into our second conversation. We had a debate about what is the name of the color of this guy's shirt. And
I nailed it, dude.
I think you nailed it entirely. So we're going to bring him out right now because he is the associate general manager.
See the tag on that shirt. What is that color? Does it say neon salmon back there?
Let's ask him. Mr. Andrew Weimer, you're officially on the show. Andrew, my man, what's happening?
Neon salmon. Come on,
man. It is neon salmon. Yeah.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
That's awesome. What's up, man? It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Way to nail my last name too on the intro. You went through every iteration, but you got it.
I'm not making the same mistake twice.
He did Vimer earlier. Do you think it's Vimer? I said, no, probably not.
No, I said, nah, it can't be. It can't be. Dude, it's
Andrew is a graduate of OU in Athens, Ohio.
Okay, so I was going to say...
Not University of Oklahoma. Not doesn't know how to spell and calls himself OU.
Okay, so the actual
there is no OU in Oklahoma.
No way.
It's University of Oklahoma.
Yeah, but they call themselves OU.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, OU, as much as they drink and party and smoke a lot of pot and stuff like that down there, they actually got it right. Yeah. They are OU.
They are the real OU.
That's right. Now listen. They have won the party school number one position many times in the 2000s, 2010, 2015, right? But when I was growing up and when I was a teenager in the 70s, late 70s and early 80s, right?
Can you stop?
Right? No, seriously, dude. You think I'm lying to you?
No, I don't. It's funny.
Dude, listen, Playboy magazine used to rank the party schools every year, right? They disqualified OU because they went professional.
What do you mean they went professional?
They went professional. They said they were disqualified because they were a professional party. So.
Oh yeah, so they there's levels to this.
There's levels to this. They're like they're no longer considered an NCAA, competition. It is now professional. They went professional. So
what is
Playboy was your source here though? If that was...
Well, I stole it from my dad, but yeah, I remember. It used to look. I read it for the words for the articles is what I was.
Of course.
Doesn't every 16-year-old boy do that?
Yeah, for sure, for research.
They do that stuff.
Is that the Bobcats? Is that their mascot?
That's the Bobcats.
That's the Bobcats.
Speaking of they had a mascot. Look this up. This is really cool. They had a kid who spent 3 years trying to become the mascot there.
Yeah.
And he finally got there because they were playing Ohio State at Ohio Stadium.
Nice.
And the first thing he did is he sprinted across the thing and tackled Brutus Buckeye and beat the hell out of him. And he got kicked out of school, all that stuff. But that was his goal in life.
I mean,
for 3 years he did that just for that game, so he could tackle Brutus Buckeye on TV. Look it up; it's there.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look that up.
You can look it up. It's there.
Andrew, for those that
I think it was Andrew. Actually,
it probably
the guy's name was Andrew.
A lot of energy.
Andy Vimmer, I think was his name.
Nailed it.
Montgomery. All right, let's talk.
Yeah, that's something.
What a segue.
That's a great segue.
Let's talk Montgomery because we could be on here for an hour.
Are we talking about Montgomery?
Oh yeah, the Montgomery case with, of course, C.H. Robinson, the ruling. For those that have been under a rock, from your perspective and your words, what do you think this means for not only, I'd say, brokerages, but really specifically speaking, since we're at the Domestic Supply Chain Summit, the domestic aspect of what we do?
I'd say this is significant for freight brokers if you've been under the rock, not hearing about this. Many brokers have been comfortable for years relying on the federal preemption of the FAA, where that was their defense strategy. They hired a carrier. They weren't liable for any safety or accidents or anything that occurred with that carrier. And now Montgomery really shifts that conversation towards whether a broker can demonstrate that they exercise reasonable care when they selected a carrier to move a load, right? So now it's focus for a lot of brokers who didn't have a strategy in place is really upending, how they're doing vetting and monitoring, understanding what information is available with the carriers that they're trying to cover on a load, what information was actually reviewed, how was the decision made that the carrier was selected and safe for that shipment, and then ultimately how do they prove it? I think that's really why the industry is paying so much attention to it.
They are. And one of the reasons I'm paying attention to it is because, it's kind of like one of these, it's like, duh, shouldn't we have been doing this the whole time? Right. But yep. I mean, seriously, but it's desperation. It's cost cutting. It's chasing after, stakeholder equity or supremacy, I should say, that type of stuff. But now they're trying to do all these things, but there's no clear direction on what is enough, right? Isn't that the challenge now? Because there's no guideline as to what you need to do. We know all the generalities like you're talking about, right? But there's nothing set in stone yet that says if you do X, Y, and Z, you're good, right? You have to convince a jury that X, Y, and Z is enough.
Correct? Exactly. So yes, there's no federal guideline saying, hey, this is the standard you must follow, right? That doesn't exist today. At the fraud symposium that Malcolm and I ran into each other at last month, the FMCSA was there and said that. So then it's on the carrier, on the broker to really set that standard themselves and establish what they think is reasonable care when it came to selecting a safe carrier. I think good brokers have always looked beyond just authority and insurance and have reviewed the safety data, monitor carrier performance, watch fraud indicators, and have documented their decisions. I think what's changing now is that those decisions are going to face scrutiny, and then the difference is now not that we do something, not that we follow the process, but proving that we follow that process, and having an auditable trail saying, hey, this is what we did. Here's the decision we made 6 months ago or a year ago with that carrier. That's the important takeaway here, I think.
Now, Andrew, when it comes specifically to documentation, I mean, the game is changing. And I kind of want to ask, why has documentation now become just as important as vetting itself? And of course, if litigation does occur, if the documentation is subpar, what are brokers specifically supposed to, I guess, have or present?
Yeah. I mean, in litigation, I'm not a lawyer. But my understanding here is if it's not documented, it's very difficult to prove it, right? What was that? Sorry?
It didn't happen. If it's not,
exactly. Right. It's she say, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the industry, I think, has often focused just on the decision itself, but the legal system always focuses on whether you can demonstrate decision-making, the process of the decision making, and what happened and what was reviewed. So I think to answer your second part of that question, what carriers need to produce, potentially carrier qualification records, safety reviews of that point in time when you booked that carrier on that load, not just during the initial onboarding. Behavior or safety of the carrier can change day by day, hour by hour. So making sure that at that moment, what was the safety analysis or risk assessment associated with that carrier. Obviously, insurance changes, so verification at that point in time, any type of monitoring alerts or behavior alerts associated with that carrier. I think internally, brokers are going to probably be scrutinized over their training of their team. So saying, hey, great that you have this process. Do your carrier reps, or if you're a cradle to grave model, do your brokers actually know your process, and are they following it? What does your training curriculum look like so everyone's educated and following that? Is there a timestamp associated to Malcolm, my broker, going through my training? And then ultimately the load assignment documentation. I cover this load today with this carrier. Here's all the criteria that I reviewed that followed my best judgment that my company set. Does the standard of how we assess a safe carrier, is that associated to the shipment with that timestamp, and who reviewed it and gave that stamp of approval? So it's a lot of stuff that they're going to have to potentially surface if litigation comes up.
One of the things that everybody's waiting for is the real impact on the capacity, right? And not truck capacity yes, truck capacity, but also brokerage capacity and mergers and acquisitions and all this other thing. And one of the greatest pressures, obviously, would be insurance rates, right? How do you stay in? Can you do that? How do you think that's going to play out? Or do you see anything playing out right now? Are we going to see a slow rise as they try and figure out, okay, here's how the risk is going to go? Or is it a landmark case has been set up by this decision that will then be now we better start raising insurance rates because this occurred? How do you see that playing out? Do you see it as a big risk, or this the slow rise, or a meteoric kind of boom, just hits the earth and explodes?
I love that.
Hard to say on that.
That was great.
I used the pebble in the water too many times, so I was looking.
That was Oscar award winning stuff,
and all the people died.
I think there'll be a rise. I don't think there'll be a meteoric event. Underwriters are definitely paying attention to it.
Yeah,
right? They're gonna.
But they're not rising it. They're not raising it right now just based on speculation, right? Like we do with oil, which is stupid. But they're not. They're doing right. There's another pressure we talk about. But they're not just doing on speculation. They wait for events to occur, right?
I think it's more about they're going to place greater scrutiny on their customers. So the brokers are getting, or the carriers are getting insurance, brokers are getting insurance, and understanding what risk management practices they already have in place, and reviewing that. So do you have the documented procedures? Have you thought through this? Are they consistently being followed? Do you have ongoing monitoring? Do you have tech that's helping you with this, or is it all just humans? How are you managing exceptions? How are you documenting decisions? Almost like, my own review of my safe driving when I have State Farm as my car insurance, right? How am I, as a driver, my premium's going to be different than someone who's an unsafe driver. I think something similar to here, but underwriters are going to be looking for, okay, I'm looking to insure you. How are you going to comply? What are you setting up to be a safe broker in the situation to minimize your risk? Yeah, it's definitely going to rise, in my opinion.
Yeah. So does that imply that, I mean, what it means to me is those with the bandwidth to be able to handle this in their brokerage are the survivors, right? And so would they, I'd be looking to tech right away, right? Because that seems like it'd be the cheapest way and the easiest way to start really beefing up my compliance, right? Because adding heads is very costly. Yeah. Right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I've been questioned multiple times of, well, are all the small brokers just going to go out of business? Is this going to be all the enterprise, large ones eating up the market? And I don't think that that's going to be the case. Similarly to this, like tech helps, and smaller organizations, we have a lot of small customers at Descartes, like small mid-market brokers that use our different platforms. And a lot of them have sophisticated compliance processes already in place and leverage different tech solutions to help automate and streamline aspects of this. Now, I think humans definitely need to be a part of the review process. Like there are some companies that want to go all in on AI to automate this entire piece. I don't think that would stand up in court very well right now. Yeah. But tech can definitely mitigate the need for large teams. And I also think training your reps too. Like you don't just have to have this huge compliance team, but being able to true the brokers on the floor, especially the carrier reps on the floor. Like here's the SOP, here's our process. No exceptions are made to this. I think that will be the real divide between brokers who succeed and others who don't. And I don't think it really depends on the size of the organization.
That's a great.
Have we seen the end of CEOs sprinting down Market Street in their underwear, carrying a flag and stuff like that because their sales teams hit profit goals?
I don't think I can answer that objectively due to my allegiance to,
certain people. I'm not doing great. It was fantastic. I loved it when he did it. It was fantastic. I'm kind of like depressed.
No,
like really?
Yeah.
No more Steve Cox walking around in women's clothing in front of the adult video store or anything like that?
I don't think you'll ever not see that happen. I think that'll always be.
But sir, you did this.
Andrew, to close us out here, man, you had a crystal ball to look this time next year about everything that we discussed today. Could you share with us here at the summit your thoughts about where we're going to be at and just, I guess, the overall impact of what this means from the Montgomery ruling and everything that's come with it on not only the broker side, but the carrier as well as shipper side too?
Yeah. A year from now, I think there will be people will have very tight processes in place because they're going to realize, they've already realized, but they're going to start taking the lack of clarity by the government and saying, okay, we're going to protect ourselves. Here's what we're establishing, and have very, very tight requirements of covering shipments with carriers. I think it may be hard because I have heard of a lot of our broker customers like not booking carriers if their authority is within 6 months or 12 months. So it might be hard for new carriers to enter the space. That might have an impact on the already ongoing capacity crunch with carriers. But I think most brokers are going to be successful in understanding, hey, here's how we not only demonstrated reasonable care with covering a little, but here's how we document it. Here's how we demonstrate it historically. Like we see a surge in people adopting tech or investing more in the tech to help with this. And then really just not treating the carrier qualification as a one-time event, like actually deploying processes of recurring monitoring and vetting with their entire network, which again is already in flight, but I think it'll just be table stakes for doing business in a year.
Andrew Weimer, again, Vice President of Strategic Operations at Descartes Transportation Management. Thank you, Andrew, for being here. Looking forward to seeing you. You're going to be here for F3, right? You have to.
We'll probably be there, yes.
Okay, cool. I was like, surely. We'll see you, man. Thank you again for being here.
Peace, bro.
All right, see you. Thanks,
bro.
Bye.
Oh, man.
Fantastic.
He's awesome. Yeah, he's a great dude. He is. To end the show, we got a closer.
It's our anchor leg.
Yeah. I'm excited about this one. He's
coming around the corner in 400.
Fantastic. He's looking good in this powder blue. Looks like a football coach. I would send my son to play for the president of strategic relations at Verified Carrier. And that's Mr. Andre Dratenko. Andre, welcome back to What the Truck. So good to have you, man.
Thanks for having me back. Excited to bring the meat on the chicken bone.
Let's bring the meat to the chicken bone.
Let's do that, man. I'd love it.
Let's bring the meat.
But always looking for players for my team. Just want to throw that out there.
Okay.
How do you think the recruiting class looks this year, Coach?
It's looking rough.
Yes,
Kids are not so.
I think Arch Manning wins the. I think Arch Manning's going to win Heisman.
You're an idiot.
Arch Manning's winning the Heisman this year, don't you think, Andre? So, Andre,
worst guy to ask.
Andre, I looked up some. I stalked you on LinkedIn and I checked out some things on you, brother, and it's truly interesting. He's a graduate of Portland State, right?
Portland State.
Went to Portland State. Now,
right.
Portland State. Many people don't know this, and it should be on every T-shirt everywhere and on every uniform. It's the college that would not die. Now, Portland State was started in 1946 as a college to 1,400 World War II veterans that were living in a housing project in Vanport. Right?
Yeah.
By Portland. Now, what happened was in 1948, massive flood destroyed the city. They refused to close college, and it stayed and it built and grew from there. And it's the college that would not die. Fantastic story.
Yeah.
How it started and survived.
I had no idea.
The other interesting thing is that we all know that Phil Knight likes to spend money on Oregon's uniforms.
You could say he writes a lot of checks.
He writes a lot of checks, and they are always dressed. Their uniform game is up.
Oh, to the nine.
Right?
Yeah.
It is nice.
100%.
Yeah. You know that the swoosh actually came from Portland State.
I had zero clue.
Yeah. 1971, Carolyn Davidson, a PSU student. PSU for not Penn State, but Portland.
Portland State.
Just so you're not confused.
Thank you so much.
After they had already opened the company as Blue Ribbon Sports, but they bought it for $35.
Okay, that's an ROI.
$35.
Yeah, and now we're here. Just
now
do
you got
it.
the Nike swoosh.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
You got one right there.
Yeah, I do. Boom,
It is.
right there.
$35 for that.
Andre, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for being back. I want to talk to you about cargo theft and fraud. And for our listeners and viewers here at the Domestic Supply Chain Summit, what does this mean right now, specifically speaking, from a domestic standpoint?
So we got a lot of issues going on. I think one of these things with politics is there's a lot of stuff, from fiscal kind of level that you could look at of why stuff is skyrocketing. But one thing that's indisputed, regardless of anybody's, political leanings or ideologies, is there's a ton of money being siphoned out, whether it's double brokering, whether it's strategic cargo theft, straight cargo theft by parties within the United States and, outside of the United States that are taking advantage of our supply chain. And so it's costing all of us. At the end of the day, it hits us. It's not just one company that pays for it or one brokerage with their insurance, or it's just, just the carrier vetting piece. At the end of the day, all of us end up paying for it with our wallet when we go to the store, because all of that is baked into those prices. And so it's a massive issue. I think it's just only continued to rise. There are a lot of cool services, whether it's tracking, whether it's vetting, whether it's escort services, tailing vehicles, not the other ones, that are helping to, combat this. So there's no silver bullet. I'm going to have to throw it out, Scott Cornell. But there are a lot of things that we can do, and it's really cool to see companies adapting. Just one thing for me, as we have a little bit of a lull, and I hate to say it this way because it really isn't, but we do have a little bit of pause right here, and we're going to have a little bit more scrutiny with carrier vetting. But I think this is where it's really important as we shift back, rightfully so, to focusing more on safety. We cannot, take our foot off the gas when it comes to all the fraud prevention, risk mitigation that we've been working on for 3-4 years, because all those bad actors, they're just waiting. And as this market tightens up right now, they love it. They love it when people have a sense of urgency. They love it when people are emotional, when you got to move a load, when stuff is sitting on the dock, when your customers are hounding you to get something off that dock. That's where people sidestep their SOPs. That's where they manage by exception. And with any scam, if somebody can try to push you to make a decision quickly, you're going to bypass one of your steps. So again, that's one of these things that it's happening. It's only going to get worse as this capacity tightens. And so kind of my advice to the industry as it's happening, keep at it, and especially the folks in compliance. It's really hard, because you have people who generate profit. They get a lot of resources. It's really easy to justify what they're doing, the head count. When it comes to, theft and compliance, when there are no issues, people are like, well, why are we paying so much to do X, Y, and Z? Well, that's actually because it is working. You do need to scrutinize it, but the people in these departments, they're not traditional salespeople, but you have to make the pitch. You have to justify the ROI of why this is important. And I think, Andrew, right before me, touched on some really great things that you need to set up SOPs. You need to put people in place, and then as far as I'm concerned, that's when you layer on the tools, when people know what they're doing. Because it's like Excel, Excel will give you wild answers, which if you know what you're doing, you could do the job of, 20 accountants 20 years ago. But if you don't know what you're doing, you're just going to get terrible information to the nth degree because it's that, powerful of a tool.
Yeah. It brings to mind an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? And you've got to, or even like hedging fuel, right? Or other costs, right? Because if you're not spending that money to prevent the theft or prevent the fraud, then what you're doing is gambling. So whoever the stakeholders are or the shareholders are in that company need to understand that that's what's happening. You're gambling. And if you're okay with that, then, go for it. But that's ridiculous to be doing that because there's people's lives and families depend on that company, right? Not to get too deep in the weeds, but it's true. You've got to have those preventative measures for those purposes and for other purposes as well, but you're trying to prevent this. Now, you had said that one of the weakest points in the supply chain is at the pickup process itself. And I think the things that you laid out really point to that, right? It's that desperation. It's that waterfall effect in your routing guide that says, oh, we're on to fourth, fifth tier because capacity constraints for whatever reason, demand side or capacity side shrinkage doesn't matter. Talk to that a little bit about what that pickup process, why you say that is there's your weakest link.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like a result of what's happened before this. A lot of different changes. COVID went and just accelerated a bunch of technology adoption. A lot of people are working remotely, and the thing is, if you can do it, well, the bad actors are doing it too. And so it's always been a challenge as any industry, starts moving towards digitalization. The problem is one, the bad guys are better at it. And I forget where I heard the quote, but I love the quote. We have to be right 1,000 times. They only need to be right once. Mm-hmm. So we have to build out rock solid SOPs. We have to stick to them. We cannot waver. We cannot deviate from what it is. But they just need to pick and prod, and then they're going to get through. And the thing is, like banking, if you think of banking, imagine 25 years ago, 30 years ago, right? You go into a bank, you see a teller, the teller's trained, you know what to expect. There's a checkbook. There's certain things that everybody's used to hearing. They're, is this person fidgeting or sweating? Does something feel off about this transaction? So we knew what it was like to work like that. And it was the same with logistics. You picked up a phone, you talked to somebody. They had to have a real company. And we have no issue with trucks, even with, the strategic cargo. A truck will show up. The problem is, as we're now catapult into the digital space with banking, we figured out, okay, well, I don't want to go to the teller for everything. And now we have the ability to do it on a computer. Then we had a smartphone. Uh-huh. But how do I interact with my bank, right? It was like passwords, but then we're like, passwords aren't good enough. Somebody could just learn what your password is or try a bunch of different combinations and guess your password.
No. Welcome to the Domestic Supply Chain Summit. I'm Thomas Wasson, and today I'm talking with the folks at Gather AI, more specifically Sean Mitchell. He is the VP of Customer Operations there, and super excited to have him on. Sean, before we dive in, tell us a little bit about not only yourself, but what Gather AI does.
Thomas, thanks for having me. Definitely excited to talk about Gather AI today. We are a physical AI company solving the challenges of inventory visibility within the warehouse and ensuring that our customers know exactly where everything is. But in parallel, that making sure that they have the right data to make better operational decisions. I run the customer operations segment, so everything post-sales, ensuring that our customers get everything that they need day in and day out to make the right decisions on that operation. I've been with Gather for a little over 7 years now, and just making sure that we've grown and expanded in such a place that our customers are now seeing huge value across the U.S. and even bridging into the international markets. Definitely excited to dive in with you.
Physical AI, how these things are doing innovations. I've been fortunate to look at autonomous vehicles, but the warehouses are also going AI. So catch us up over the years. What's kind of led up to this moment? Because I think that's one of the bigger underreported stories, is just how awesome this warehouse technology is getting.
Definitely. So, I mean, the big change here is the similar change that you're seeing across the industry with AI becoming a pervasive technology. And what I mean by that is you'll see that all of a sudden the data gathering tools are becoming smarter and more ubiquitous. And what this means then is whether you're using computer vision to read, labels or text, or whether you're using it to track all the inventory in the warehouse, you can now synthesize this into, effectively an AI copilot that comes together and makes sure that you're making the most smart decisions within your warehouse. And what that means then is that instead of this being an AI technology locked to, let's say the strict Fortune 500, this is now something that can be everywhere, right? I think many of your users are able to, utilize whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, or it is. This is now a ubiquitous capability, and so that means that effectively you can have cameras everywhere, allowing you to make smarter operation decisions. And of course, this is going to be coming to the warehouse as a key part of what drives our society forward.
Well, looking at those cameras as well, I remember it was one of the big deals just to install the cameras a few years back. And so is that the computer vision and the agentic model is just kind of teaching these agents how to do it? Or was there something kind of unique over this past 7 years that you've had some experience where, like an aha moment or something like that? Or is it really just building on the shoulders of these rapid increases in generative AI and hardware?
I would say it's building on the shoulders. I think the beauty here is that the off-the-shelf technology is strong enough now that you can gain incredibly capable insights into your inventory, into your warehouse, and your operations without needing to spend an arm and a leg creating a custom robotic solution. It used to be that you had to build, a massive custom robot that was specifically designed for your system. Today, you're able to go through and jump in with, effectively low cost sensors, and to be able to now make real-time and better decisions about your operations. And that's really been the transformative shift.
What are you thinking for some of the lowest hanging fruit right now, especially when we're looking at the warehousing? You've got everything from counting, you've got everything from stowing, packing, unloading. What are you kind of seeing right now in terms of what customers are looking to deploy first for folks who are like, oh, I need this, I just don't know where to start?
So I think the big place that we see right off the bat is looking at savings when it comes to either a top line or a bottom line, right? And the top line savings for any warehouse really comes from improving their on time and full, their OS&D. If you can take a fixed asset like a warehouse where you can't easily increase the size, but you can increase the throughput. You can make sure that people are going to the right place at the right time. If you get an order from a customer, making sure that you can complete that order. If you go to the shelf and see, hey, this product is actually here, pick, pack, ship it out, you can make sure that you're hitting your revenue targets and you can continue to grow and expand. The difficulty we're seeing with a lot of customers across the board is they will take in a requirement from their end customer, they'll go to pick it, and the product won't be there. And now they have to run around throughout the warehouse looking for this product to complete this order. And now instead of going through and committing to the shipment that they already promised, they're now stuck in a situation in which they have to run around looking for this product, spend the resources they could have spent executing other orders to make sure that everything is there as they need it. And so it's the inefficiencies that stack up one after the other, really based upon not having the correct inventory accuracy that we see as kind of the lowest hanging fruit. From there, whether it is at the receiving dock, whether it is loading, unloading, whether it's in the put away, in the racking, the pallet, or even in the case flow, we're seeing that it is that stacking of inaccuracies across the board where there is kind of a lack of ground truth understanding that's causing problems. And so as the pace increases, the level of visibility has to increase as well. And this is really where you can leverage AI to make sure that you have the best understanding of the physical assets in your warehouse to continue to drive your business forward.
Well, that's one of the cool things. I had no idea it was that hard to just count things. That's what blows my mind. And so, I'm looking at drones and other technologies. Is that one of the bigger things now that folks are using? Because someone told me before, you just have to have somebody in like a cherry picker and just driving down with a little scanner, and then you hope that you've got enough time to like pick everything.
Oh, yeah. So I come from contract manufacturing. We used to do high precision optoelectronics. We're in an SMT line. And the big thing there was I would go tell the production team, okay, we're ready to run this. We're ready to run this board production run down. They'd go to the warehouse. They'd say, yep, the bill of materials clean. We're ready to go to production. And all of a sudden you'd get started and realize, oh, actually this part was short. And it really comes down to, it's not just difficult. It's not just time consuming. It's becoming exponentially more challenging to go through and stay on top of your inventory accuracy without utilizing AI to do so. And so that's been the challenge that we've been trying to face. And so you're talking about people going up and down in cherry pickers and counting inventory. Effectively, what we've done is to find a flexible and easy way to conduct all of these inventory counts at a much faster pace. And what I mean by that is previously you had human beings going up and down scanning inventory with a barcode scanner. Now you can have either a drone that'll go through and automatically scan all that inventory, digitize it at 15x the speed of a human being. But you can also go through and have a camera system that when you put anything away on your material handling equipment, whether it's a forklift, a turret truck, order picker, it actually scans it in, scans it out as you're transacting that, and then speaks directly back to your warehouse management system, making sure that you can't put anything in the wrong spot because effectively you have now transacted it just through all of the automated sensing systems.
So that's one of the big deals I noticed, even in the supply chain, looking at a domestic supply chain one, is that the throughput and efficiencies of warehouses and distribution centers really will make and break those companies and their transportation providers. And so is that one of the things we're finally starting to see, kind of these efficiencies make their way to the front of those docks? Or has a lot of this been really just going inside these stacks, getting the right setup involved, fixing inaccuracies, OS&Ds? It was described, it reminds me of like an onion in terms of innovation. Where are we at in our onion? Are we finally like automating at the very tip of the door, or where's this big developments happening right now?
So what we've been seeing, especially coming out of COVID, was that you need to have a reliable supply chain, right? All the way through, you need to make sure you know what inventory is on the shelf. You need to make sure that you are able to be as flexible and as nimble as possible, regardless of what gets thrown at you. And so I think that's the breaking point that a lot of companies saw, was they need to innovate very quickly. I think we're well beyond the leading edge of just a few people prototyping the system. It's now mainstream. It's now the expectation that if you're not using AI and automation within your warehouse, you are behind. And I think that's been kind of the big shift I've seen over the last 3-4 years. Is it's not an adoption question. It's now are you using the right AI system to solve your problems? There's very few warehouses out there that are not looking at this now and saying, hey, we need to keep up pace with the rest of the industry. It's now making sure that you're using the right system to solve your specific challenges.
Well, let's talk about the agents too, because I think that it's this 1-2 punch. We have innovations in autonomy. We've got drone technology, computer vision, more visibility and everything. But these agents are now getting trained to do specific tasks. What are the areas that you guys are seeing specifically that I would want to think about having an agent either as a helper or an augmenter? What within those operations am I getting the best bang for my buck? Similar to how I can use a drone for that 15x. What are these agents for folks who should be paying attention?
When it comes to agents, I think the biggest thing here is you want an AI system that is your kind of highly knowledgeable partner, right? You want it to be able to help you make better decisions with that pervasive knowledge base. And what that means then is if you're going through and inputting it constantly with where is your inventory, where are your orders going out, where's the density, you can go through and now utilize AI agents to actually start conducting workflows within your warehouse to tell you what you don't know immediately. And what I mean by that is you can easily query with natural language now, how full is the warehouse? Where are my orders coming in? Do I need to reorganize the slotting of the inventory within the warehouse? Do I need to shift resources from one area to another to complete these orders? The agents are allowing us to quickly make better decisions about the warehouse with the inventory. So meaning you're kind of creating this guardrail system in which you can have the data flow give you good recommendations and then use human reasoning to make sure that you're making the right business decisions. These are things where previously to an agentic solution, you may spend days or weeks pulling out this information to see where the mistakes may be. Whereas with agents, they can alert you immediately when you see a drop in production. They can immediately alert you when there's a problem and help you to go through and fix that without spending weeks trying to find these gaps in your data.
I had a crazy conversation about someone about this, using these agentic and kind of having the data localized in the warehouses compared to putting them all up on a singular cloud server. Is that one of the part of the bigger trends? Because theoretically, one person said if they had a large cloud provider have an outage, having a distributed network, and now with the agents able to kind of operate on a different layer, you can still maintain your little warehouses, even if maybe your centralized mission control has kind of gone down. Are the agents opening that up as well? Because that was kind of a wild thing to think about, and I was like, how often does that happen?
This ties, Thomas, ties right back to your original question of is the hardware changing? And the answer is today we can now do a lot of this computation on the edge, right? You can live in a, let's say it's a Wi-Fi or GPS denied environment. You can now have the system work with the compute modules on board to go through and make those smart decisions and then sync back up with the cloud once it's available. I've yet to see a warehouse that has amazing wireless systems all the way through where there's no dead zones, there's no outage spaces. We really need to make sure that if we're going through and creating this physical AI system, that it is as robust as possible. And I think the biggest thing here is going through and allowing that edge compute that you're talking about, which is now, given the ubiquitous nature of of the improved AI enabled components, is inexpensive, right? It's more about improving the thinking rather than trying to pay for the hardware.
And kind of looking at managing other parts of the warehouse as well. So we've got really good information on sorting. We can get information on throughput, language processing. One of the things that always happened to me was, could I get an agent to figure out why my forklifts keep breaking, or making sure that we're using the right equipment or some of the right autonomous things within the stacks? Is that one of the things that I guess these softwares are starting to be able to tackle as well, is not just the process of counting, but the actual process of loading, moving, and making sure that you're kind of balancing that? Because one forklift going down, turns out, very bad day from what I've been told.
This is where you have the ability to tie all these different data streams together. I mean, one forklift going down is deeply frustrating, but if you were able to go through and see the signals that are coming out of that forklift a few days ahead of time to say, hey, it seems like, the sensors are actually saying this forklift is driving slower, or we've noticed that the tire pressure in the back tire is reducing. If you can tie all of these sensors together, you can make those better decisions to avoid having that forklift breakdown. And I think that's really where AI shines. It's able to aggregate all of this, chaotic data and put it into a way in which someone can look at it and say, oh, that forklift is going to break, but also to go through and say, okay, you have lost a forklift. How do you make the best decision with the 5, 10, 15 forklifts that you have left to go through and stay ahead of the game, right? And so instead of sitting there and focusing in on the problem, you can now query it and say, agentically, what are the solutions that can get me out of here, aside from the agent already calling the repair person and saying, hey, I need to go through and fix XYZ.
That's one of the things I've noticed in some of the computer vision, the autonomy, and the vehicles outside of the warehouse. It's equally important because they're performing counts. They're being able to locate the trailers, figuring out if there's stuff in them. Is that one of the areas, kind of zooming out a little bit? I look at warehouse management systems, transportation management systems, ERP, and all these other resources. Is this agentic thing going to help out on that end? Because I can imagine for a lot of large multinational companies with extensive warehouses, they often either have an inbound and outbound transportation team that they're having to deal with, and then trying to make sure that you're getting all sides of that coin to talk to themselves.
I think the importance here is creating the linkage between systems, right? It's making sure that your data can talk to each other, whether that is in an LMS, whether that is in a WMS, whether that is inside of your transport network. There's no value to a large multinational having amazing data in one warehouse that doesn't speak to the rest of their network. That's the importance of being able to go through and have this load balancing between facilities and making sure that you have kind of a smart, pervasive AI that can go through and say, oh, okay, we've actually found that this facility had a hydraulic leak in their forklift. Why don't you go through and shift these orders to another location to make sure that we can stay ahead of our customer needs, right? Those are the smart decisions that pervasive AI can actually allow, that today would have been challenging for a person to pick up the phone and realize, in addition to fixing their forklifts, they need to now adjust not 100% of the orders, but maybe just 5% just to make up for the productivity drop that occurred from losing that one forklift.
Let's talk about looking ahead while we have a little bit of time left. Kind of thinking this AI is almost like a form of industrial revolution. It reminds me of like electricity when they first put them in factories. Some companies used electricity to power a specific motor or a pulley. Other ones installed light bulbs, and they designed their factories for an electric world. How does that look with warehousing? Now that we have AI and all of these computer vision, physical AI, the whole shebang, what are you kind of hearing on that front? What does the warehouse of the future start to kind of look like?
Definitely. So I think the best thing about AI and the way that at least we Gather are envisioning this is it's not a, burn it to the ground and start over approach, right? It really is coming in and being flexible and being adaptive to the reality on the ground. I think most, warehouse logistics providers out there cannot afford to start over and put thousands upon thousands of cameras in every single corner of their warehouse to map things out. It really needs to fit into the existing systems that you have and to be smart and flexible. And the reason I say that is when it comes to your fleet of forklifts, we'll continue on that thread. Effectively, what we need to do is to be able to tie into the systems that you have to make them smarter and to make them be as flexible as possible. And what I mean by that is if you're going through and having somebody, today, let's say you're picking up a pallet off a loading dock or out of a trailer, moving it out, instead of having somebody get off, pull out their scan gun, scan in, scan out, recenter, go to the next operation, you can now effectively just pick up that pallet, move it to another location, let it go. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to go through and have these double or triple checks because you have a vision system that's speaking to a back-end AI agent that's saying, okay, I need to do this transaction. I need to make sure this is in the correct spot. And as you're moving it, the agent is already saying, oh, actually, I noticed that that's damaged. I noticed there's a problem here, and it'll flag it for someone else to fix it, or it'll alert the driver while you're going. It'll also go through and tie in with all of your other systems. So instead of going through and saying, hey, we need to have a futuristic warehouse where everything is mobile and you've got thousands upon thousands of cameras, we need to look at an AI that fits into the existing mold, that is as flexible as we need it to be, so that it now allows people to be as efficient as they can be. And what I mean by that is not having people run around looking like robotic systems, but allowing them to fit into a world in which the systems give them the right questions and the right data so that human judgment can take over and ensure that we're making the best operational decisions.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Looking ahead the next 6 to 12 months, what are the biggest things that are kind of on your horizon that folks should be aware of, especially as we continue to get more coverage of AI automation in the warehousing space?
So for us, it's really about scaling. It's about growing and expanding with our customers. And we just closed a Series B. And so for us, the biggest thing is really bringing out our core technologies to as many customers as possible. I think, we look at it kind of in our data stack as a vision platform that goes through, whether it's drones or MHEV, that goes through, senses the information. We have Sage, which is a ability for us to go through and make those better decisions. And then we have an agentic workflow system that ties all of this together to make sure that our customers are executing and staying ahead of their operational demands. And so for us, that is just scaling and expanding, whether it is our fully autonomous platforms or whether it is even just the agentic way in which you can communicate with your warehouse management system.
Well, Sean, I really appreciate your time as well. Thank you for joining me talking about not only the technology, but what Gather AI is working on. If folks want to learn more, what's the best way to get more info?
www.gather.ai. It's our website. We've got all the information right there. If you're curious, you can contact us through that. Thomas, really appreciate the time and the opportunity to be on here with you.
It's definitely a great chat. We'll catch up again soon. We are out of time for this fireside chat, but don't worry, folks. We have a lot more great content coming up for this Domestic Supply Chain Summit. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Domestic Supply Chain Summit. I'm Thomas Wasson, and today we're talking about how AI is revolutionizing the procurement aspect and the supply chain. And there's tons of different moving pieces. And one of the amazing things with this technology is that it is able to touch all aspects of our very chaotic and fragmented supply chain. And so joining me are the folks from Envoy AI. And I'm super excited to have Robert joining me to talk a little bit about not only what they're working on, but how folks can get into the AI revolution. Welcome, Robert.
Hello, Thomas. Thanks for having me, and I always appreciate participating in FreightWaves symposiums and events.
Well, give us a little bit of backstory. Tell me about yourself and what you guys are working on, and we'll dive into all the cool stuff.
Yeah, so I started literally when I was 7 years old, sorting screws, nuts, and bolts inside of a warehouse. At the age of 15, I started loading trucks. 16, I started delivering product around the city of Chicago. And that's really where I learned and fell in love with logistics. It's sort of, as many people know, once you get in, it's very hard to get out. Everything around here, as you know, got here on a plane, train, truck, or automobile. So I learned that as an early age. Out of college, I had the opportunity, graduated with a philosophy degree, and didn't see that it was the right time to be a philosopher in life. So I started out in logistics, specifically at a third-party logistics firm. Spent 2 years there, learned a tremendous amount from the team, from the leaders, the owners, and started a company called Load Delivered Logistics, which is one of the first companies specializing in third-party logistics, specializing in temperature-controlled goods. So we really wanted to specialize in product decay, going into retail, $250,000 to $1 million products, a lot of pharmaceuticals as well. And that was how I started my career. So building that company, along the way, also built Logistical Labs, which was a Freight Tech 25 company specializing in pricing and modal optimization. Sold both of those companies to Capstone Logistics, spent some time there. Great company, great people. And the past 4 or 5 years have really just been investing, operating, advising in the sector until Envoy AI. So LLMs and the birth of LLMs pulled me back into the industry. And it's been very exciting over the past 12 months to start to innovate and build a tremendous platform with a really not just sophisticated team, but a passionate team, a team of domain experts. So having a lot of fun and excited to be here today.
So let's set the stage for why the AI is such a big deal. The whole effort of procurement and all of these various processes, give us kind of a high level overview of why it's kind of like this rat's nest at the moment. And then we can dive into the specific cases on where AI is able to help speed things up.
So talk to me a little bit about Rat's Nest. I love to hear from the perspective of people outside of the AI native world, just how it's being viewed prior to sort of giving my context.
And so one of the things I think about is I came from full truckload. So we're looking at when by the time it gets to my truck on a dock and it's preloaded in a trailer, there's 3 to 4 other processes. Did it go inbound to a DC? Is this a DC to an outbound? Was this tendered correctly? Was a warehouse management system? Is the customer have their own little vendors? Apparently there's this entire little backlog of the supply chain before it reaches my more familiar area, which is kind of that middle mile point-to-point moves. And that's one of the cool things learning more about this procurement and AI and how we're doing the supply chain is that not only are these very disparate parts getting interconnected, but the AI is able to accelerate that and provide more visibility.
Excellent. So I spent my career trying to kill latency in the supply chain. And what you're talking about is whether it's inside the warehouse, outside of the warehouse, inside of a transportation logistics service provider, there is latency. And figuring out how to connect those nodes as fast as possible. That is what I'm interested in doing, and specifically in an execution labor layer. And so when we think about whether it's the middle mile or inside or outside, inside the cab, outside of the warehouse, we need to think about how to take technology that has typically been this static system of record and evolve it into a system of action, system of execution that works with the labor layer, not against the layer labor. So you probably grew up looking at a TMS system or a WMS system or something that was stagnant, and you had to take action, or you had to write the rule to take action. Well, in the future state, it's a combination between coding, prompting, and building a semantic layer that understands the ontology of why and how decisions are made in logistics. And when we think about procurement specifically, there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. But I've always looked at it as a 100-step roadmap to a virtual, fully automated freight brokerage. I've been building out this thesis since 2012, but it hasn't been until the past, I think, really 12 months until we've had the capability to tap into the technology that has been produced over the past, I'd say, 3 years specifically.
Well, that was, I like how you mentioned the latency, how quick it can respond, because that's exactly what I had to deal with. You know, we were dealing with exceptions in operations. We would get notifications. We were exception management, but frequently it was like you had to ask somebody else. You needed a software developer. You needed this business analyst. You needed to have the one person who remembers what a Microsoft SharePoint is. And so now with the AI, when you're talking about the semantics, I'm assuming that's kind of this big leap is when you incorporate it in, you no longer have to have all this stratified layers of additional people. You're more empowered with the tools to move very fast.
The tools are changing. And you just nailed it. The tools that an operator has, they have to change. They've been the same for the past 20 years. And incrementally, they've gotten better. We've had different sort of visibility items. We could see where dots were on a map. We could see a beautiful report with colors and this graph that told you what was going on. But we never had any instruments, never had any technology that could help us take action consistently without direction from, specifically, as you mentioned, an engineer coding something, coding a rule, hard coding a rule into the back end. And so it's exciting. It's still early. I think we have another, things move fast in technology and logistics, but they also move slow. So what I've noticed is everything I predicted 8 years ago with intelligent rating, automated rating, a lot of the things you're seeing C.H. Robinson come out with today, there's going to be this next phase of discussion of AI native and AI labor execution and how that corresponds and integrates with these legacy systems, or if it replaces. And I think in the next 2 months, we'll see some very, very interesting announcements from some big companies and some big investors that are doubling down on the AI native platform thesis.
I kind of have that that reminds me of how AI in the SaaSpocalypse now, where because the agentic AI can really just go in your database in your warehouse and it can just find it, you no longer need to have that moat. You don't need to have middleman gatekeeping. When we're thinking about that in the supply chain, I had a cool conversation with Bennett CIO, and that was one of the things where some of these AI platforms are being tacked on as modules, whether it's telematics, ELD, driver stuff. Is that kind of the thing where you see these very large companies, when they're thinking of AI, and they're like, well, I got this legacy system. It's like now the best time more than ever that if you're thinking of just kind of replacing it, because the AI is making it so much faster. And I'll tie that into your assistant that you all are working on as well.
Well, so let's just talk macro, like what's going on in the industry. You have legacy TMSs that were started by people that are in their 70s and 80s now. You have major ones also that are owned by publicly traded companies. Some of those publicly traded companies are actually looking to divest their entire logistics division. And so when we think about these large publicly traded companies that own TMSs, we think about these privately held TMS companies owned by these older people that are looking to sell their companies. And then you have these billion-dollar companies that are still dependent, these billion-dollar LSPs, on these legacy TMSs. Now is the time for that to change. And that's why I'm so excited to be building Envoy. It's not just an adaptive rating system. It's not just an execution layer. It's not just on the procurement side, which is where we've started. Our vision is much broader and something that a lot of our customers we spend a lot of time intimately working with. So yeah, exciting times in the industry for not just builders, but also I think the best operators as well.
Well, let's talk about some of the procurement aspects. You all have, you're using AI helping with that procurement layer. Give us kind of an overview of, for folks who aren't as familiar, what makes it such a big deal and what made you want to target that area first?
So capacity is really challenging. I always believed when I was building my top 50 freight brokerage, every time we grew and scaled, and we had a couple of years where we doubled. We were an Inc. 500 company, one of the fastest growing companies in Chicago. And we had to hire people. We had to hire labor. And I think about that. And then I think about what we're building today at Envoy and how the goal is as brokerages start to grow and scale, it can't be linear. It can't just be with people. It has to be with this new labor layer, this new execution layer. And specifically in the carrier department, finding trucks, communicating with drivers, understanding their problems, issue resolution, understanding where they are, when they need to deliver, how they need to schedule appointments, how the change in an appointment can drastically change the rate, how we need to think about safety and verification. I spent hours, probably days of my life answering a call, verifying that the carrier was okay to work with in my system. Those days are over. Freight brokers in this next generation will never have to do that. And then take it one step further. And when we think about the LSPs into shippers, I'm a big believer in load control centers. And we have several shippers that have reached out to us and are engaging with us specifically to understand how they can communicate with their carriers better. Not necessarily how they bypass brokers, but how do they communicate better in this new era? And so we're not really even talking about AI. We're just talking about how to communicate better in a world that has really been rattled with this latency. We called it communication and visibility layer, but it was really just another latency layer.
Yeah, I remember there was a great study, I think it was MIT, talking about the latency extends all the way down to utilization. So for the carriers who want to use you and use you as a platform and work with shippers, the difference between I'm in and out in an hour because you guys have an AI workflow that has optimized it versus 3 hours compared to the other person. You know, in this current environment, looking ahead as drivers are capacities becoming a premium in the current upcycle, I think that may be one of the big differentiators. It reminds me of like in Mexico where Mexican carriers will prioritize speed of payment over like certain other characteristics, because in that specific area, it was really hard to get paid in under like 30 days. And so I'm assuming that's one of the big things with AI now is we're taking this, you know, it's not reinventing the wheel, but if you have a very fast wheel, you can win a race.
I agree. You mentioned payments specifically. In the world of freight execution and with the new labor layer, there is no reason that a company should pay in 30, 60, 90, 120 days. The entire payment ecosystem will change. It starts with how you verify carriers, how you're booking carriers, but the actual way in which carriers are paid, it already is changing. And I think we'll see different companies level up. We're not specifically working in the payment space. We're working on really hard stuff. So everyone knows about the explosion of data centers and what's going on with the reindustrialization of America. And so we saw that, and we needed to build a system that was adaptive and episodic. And by that, I mean, if we needed to work with a company that was doing flatbeds and these were $500,000 shipments or $2 million shipments going into a specific location, an undisclosed location that was high target, how do we think about using AI in our verification system and procurement system differently than if it's just CPG? And I was able to tap on a lot of my experience because I had to do this earlier in my career. I went from CPG to $3 million shipments of pharma going into CVS. And so it's the same concept. It's deconstructing the workflow, building it back up, and then understanding how to weave in a combination of not just code, but prompting. And not just prompting, but understanding the right LLMs to select in order to get the result that you and your team and your customer are looking for.
That kind of ties me into the next point as well, which is I think with a lot of organizations, we see the AI, we hear the buzzwords, we know that it can do things like little helpers, but figuring out how to train your workforce as well to also think about that, because that's got to be a brand new kind of concept. It used to be in my corporate days at US Express, the LLM was a middle manager, and then the VP would go yell at the middle manager and say, hey, I need to figure this out. And then the poor middle manager had to figure it out. And so now I'm assuming, think of the LLMs as like your personal little assistant. It's kind of like it's like a paradigm shift in your thinking. And then we can look into that, how that may impact the supply chain.
You nailed it, Thomas. So in the future, and I'm seeing this in real time, the best operators become orchestrators and the bosses of these massive agent platforms. I was on a line with one of our customers yesterday, and he has a couple different AI platforms he's working with today, and he's orchestrating them. So instead of managing 100 people, he's managing 20 people and 3 different AI platforms. And it's my role to be a gold medalist in specifically where we're at today, while also painting the picture of what I think he's capable of in the future. And part of it is taking this institutional knowledge, this trade craft that has lived. It's in my brain. I can't. It's hard to explain it to people sometimes, but it lurks in brilliant people's minds all over the logistics service industry. We need to take that knowledge and institutionalize that so that they can work on more sophisticated, higher level projects, higher level problem solving activities versus this redundant activity they're used to. I used to be the human API in my 20s because that's all I did. I transferred information from one system to another. And I think this next generation of operators, they deserve better. And we're going to make sure they have better technology.
As we're wrapping things up, I think I have, we always got to throw in a spicy take, but one of the things that you've kind of touched on, especially with AI and what you guys are working on with Envoy. So I remember like in the early days there was Coyote, they had their system, they had, you tacked the phones, you brute forced it with people, you had a TMS platform in the early 2000s. That was like the first wave. We had another wave come in where the technology, tracking, telematics, looking for drivers, the P44s of the world and everything, we could finally get visibility. And then, COVID saw one. But with this AI, I feel like there's a 4th or a 5th wave. There's been so many waves now. Do you think that's going to be the differentiator for the next group of upstart logistics companies, or the ones that are going to be using these platforms and the AI? Because it does almost have that feeling, because when I was an account executive, I had a team of 5. But now it seems, based on what you're telling me, I could have a team of 5 agents, and then I'm orchestrating and allowing them to automate versus taking 6 to 8 months to train a new person, and I hope they don't quit, and I hope they don't call out sick and stuff.
So first, major respect to Jeff Silver at Coyote and also what he's doing at Mastery. Major respect to Jet McCandless, what he has done at Project 44 and what they are doing right now in the AI space. So major respect to both of them and their companies. When thinking about this next evolution, it is going to be different because of the massive amount of money that is being poured into LLMs. And the right operators and the right technologists will be able to figure out how to start to enhance existing labor, replace some of the labor that exists today, and really change the substrate. And by that, I mean, there will be new systems, not just helping existing systems, but new systems, new substrates, and new operating models will exist. And that's what I'm interested in. That's what Envoy is doing. We are working with companies that are interested in changing their operating model fundamentally. And that's what's exciting to me today. And that's what I'm excited about in the future. So Envoy to the moon. As you can see, SpaceX, I'm pretty inspired by that right now as well, whether it's Moongistics in the future or not. But Envoy's here today. working on the procurement side. The future, though, is going to be much, much bigger.
I'm gonna hold you to it. Space truckers. We're gonna have some space trucker patches, or you can get some mission patches.
Absolutely.
All right, Robert. Thank you so much for your time as well. Check out the folks Envoy AI. Great stuff. Always a pleasure to be catching up with you. We'll definitely see you again soon.
Thank you very much. Take care.
All right, folks. Stay tuned. We have a lot more great content coming up. Don't go away. This is the FreightWaves Domestic Supply Chain Summit.
Hi, my name is Tom Hurwicz. I'm the founder and one of the principals of Basis. So I'd like to give you a quick bit of background about Basis before we get into what we're really here to talk about, which is Bullseye, our second product. But Basis got its start when I joined the intermodal trucking industry as a trucking company owner about half a decade ago. And I quickly realized that there was plenty of opportunities for improvements in efficiency. That's what I had been doing for the previous 2 decades as a consultant. So every little inefficiency just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And that's where the Basis TMS came from. And we, as we went along, we saw other opportunities to build products. And so what we've got at Basis is a product suite in development. We are launching our second product, Bullseye, just now. But there's another 4 products that are coming along sometime later this year or early 2027. And all of them are there to kind of solve a problem. So I'd like to just quickly walk you through just an example of what the Basis TMS does. It's really designed for small to medium-sized trucking companies. The idea is to bring the most current technology, excuse me, down to the smaller trucking companies where some of the major solutions don't scale down, to be honest, and the cost base is just doesn't represent the smaller trucking companies like the one that I ran. So Basis is paid by the truck, by the month. There's no contract, but it does have the latest tech, and that's what's great about it. So, for example, when you have a load delivered by email, it's just a drag and drop from your email into Basis. It reads the entire document, and it creates a load. In fact, it can create upwards of 20 loads, or 21, really, in a matter of seconds. And the best part is you don't even have to select a delivery date. You can do that as you're dispatching. And you can dispatch an entire week's worth of loads to a single truck in basically one drag and drop. So those are just a couple of the features that are really exciting about what we've got in the Basis TMS. If you want something that you can run from the cab of your truck as you're running your own trucking company, Basis TMS is it. So we're really here to talk about Bullseye. Now, Bullseye, as I mentioned, is our second product, and Bullseye is really more focused on the cargo owners. Now, what Bullseye is that little bit of automation that doesn't currently exist anywhere. When a container is dropped on a drop and hook load, it's it's left to the cargo owner to make sure they track the last free day. And well, to be honest, they just don't have a way to operationalize that information. So that's what Bullseye does. It connects track and trace software, mass data as well, back to the carrier. So we call it the real missing link in intermodal logistics. And before I waste any more time, let's take a quick look. There's not too much to see. It's a very simple product, but it solves a very big problem. The big thing that Bullseye takes care of, obviously, is detention. So it shows status by yard, by container, by company. We're not trying to replace track and trace software or a YMS, but we carry a lot of the same data because it's just transferred over. So for your yard management team, they can have access to the same information that you might have at your desktop if you're managing inbound logistics. So here we have container status on dates. We also have it by yard down below. And then if you want a more kind of a deeper dive, we have a container dashboard. And you can see some information about the number of containers outstanding total and which ones are seriously overdue. Maybe you want to do something about that. How much detention you might have accrued. With Bullseye, that should probably be pretty close to a 0. This is just a sample dashboard, of course. Now, of course, we can integrate and we want to integrate with your YMS and track and trace software. But if you don't have it, there's a way for you to actually create a container, put it in the system yourself. You can do it manually, and it will go directly to the container dashboard right here. So this is a prioritized list of all of the containers you have that are sitting on your yard. Now, the trucks that come in and out will only see the ones that are listed as with the status of empty, and all of those are prioritized by your priority. Now, you can you can manually set something to be the most important container, or what we call the MVC, the most valuable container, to make sure that gets returned first. But generally speaking, it'll be done by last free day. And that's pretty much it. There's a little bit more to the web app, but I think the important part is to get to the integration. So that's what we're going to do next. Hey, it's Tom again. I just want to walk through the driver app now. So what you're looking at is what the driver will see when they log into our driver, the Bullseye driver app. So they have two options when they get to a customer site. They can either scan a QR code, like you can see on the sign behind me. That will take them directly to the list of containers for that particular site. Or if they don't feel like doing that, or if it's not available, or they choose to open the Bullseye app after they pass through the gate, they can simply click on the list like I just did, and then they can choose the list from what they see here. Now, a driver is only going to see the list, the yards, that they are legally allowed to see, that the BCO has approved them for. So it's not going to be a hunt and peck through 1,000 yards. It's going to be a number of, 5, 10, 15, whatever your trucking company might handle. So we're going to click on the second one here, and what you'll see pull up is what we call the MVC list, the most valuable container list. Now you'll notice the first one is starred because, that's the most valuable to the customer. It has to get back soonest. So we're going to click on that. And when we click on that, it's ours. It's as simple as that. So now we can, if we want to, we can change that container if we decided that's not the one we want to haul. Maybe there's a flat tire in the chassis or an issue with one of the hookups. So you click on the blue box here in the upper right. Allows you to disconnect from that container and release it back to the BCO, or you just carry on and go back to the port with it. Now, if available, depending on the port, if there are gate codes available, pins, we can get those for you. So you don't have to call dispatch and request that. So that will come based off the information that we get from the bill of lading and the customer information, through the YMS and track and trace software. So once the driver has gotten the container back to the port, they'll upload a gate ticket, do so as soon as they get through the gate, and that information gets uploaded to basically a load that we've created in the system. Now, if the container doesn't match, if they manage to grab the wrong one, that's okay. We will just find the container that from the list that matches, and we will make a swap. And of course, notifications go out to everybody, so everything will get updated in the system. Everyone will be aware of the fact they may have pulled a different container, which should be fine as long as it was on the list, and they're good to go. And all the information, including that gate ticket copy, are available to all parties on the load. And that's it. It's a very simple tool, but it solves a very complex and very important, specifically getting rid of detention. But there's other benefits to Bullseye, which include safety, less repositioning in the yards. There's an environmental component too, right? Less waiting around, less idle time at customer sites. And there's some benefits that are going to be coming along in the near future. There's some enhancements that we're working on. So, if Bullseye is for you, we, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you, but there's other stuff coming too. So please get excited about what we're doing. Take a look at our website, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.
Welcome to the Domestic Supply Chain Summit. I'm Thomas Wasson, and today we're talking about how AI is revolutionizing the procurement aspect and the supply chain. And there's tons of different moving pieces. And one of the amazing things with this technology is that it is able to touch all aspects of our very chaotic and fragmented supply chain. And so joining me are the folks from Envoy AI. And I'm super excited to have Robert joining me to talk a little bit about not only what they're working on, but how folks can get into the AI revolution. Welcome, Robert.
Hello, Thomas. Thanks for having me, and I always appreciate participating in FreightWaves symposiums and events.
Well, give us a little bit of backstory. Tell me about yourself and what you guys are working on, and we'll dive into all the cool stuff.
Yeah, so I started literally when I was 7 years old, sorting screws, nuts, and bolts inside of a warehouse. At the age of 15, I started loading trucks. 16, I started delivering product around the city of Chicago. And that's really where I learned and fell in love with logistics. It's sort of, as many people know, once you get in, it's very hard to get out. Everything around here, as you know, got here on a plane, train, truck, or automobile. So I learned that as an early age. Out of college, I had the opportunity, graduated with a philosophy degree, and didn't see that it was the right time to be a philosopher in life. So I started out in logistics, specifically at a third-party logistics firm. Spent 2 years there, learned a tremendous amount from the team, from the leaders, the owners, and started a company called Load Delivered Logistics, which is one of the first companies specializing in third-party logistics, specializing in temperature-controlled goods. So we really wanted to specialize in product decay, going into retail, $250,000 to $1 million products, a lot of pharmaceuticals as well. And that was how I started my career. So building that company, along the way, also built Logistical Labs, which was a Freight Tech 25 company specializing in pricing and modal optimization. Sold both of those companies to Capstone Logistics, spent some time there. Great company, great people. And the past 4 or 5 years have really just been investing, operating, advising in the sector until Envoy AI. So LLMs and the birth of LLMs pulled me back into the industry. And it's been very exciting over the past 12 months to start to innovate and build a tremendous platform with a really not just sophisticated team, but a passionate team, a team of domain experts. So having a lot of fun and excited to be here today.
So let's set the stage for why the AI is such a big deal. The whole effort of procurement and all of these various processes, give us kind of a high level overview of why it's kind of like this rat's nest at the moment. And then we can dive into the specific cases on where AI is able to help speed things up.
So talk to me a little bit about Rat's Nest. I love to hear from the perspective of people outside of the AI native world, just how it's being viewed prior to sort of giving my context.
And so one of the things I think about is I came from full truckload. So we're looking at when by the time it gets to my truck on a dock and it's preloaded in a trailer, there's 3 to 4 other processes. Did it go inbound to a DC? Is this a DC to an outbound? Was this tendered correctly? Was a warehouse management system? Is the customer have their own little vendors? Apparently there's this entire little backlog of the supply chain before it reaches my more familiar area, which is kind of that middle mile point-to-point moves. And that's one of the cool things learning more about this procurement and AI and how we're doing the supply chain is that not only are these very disparate parts getting interconnected, but the AI is able to accelerate that and provide more visibility.
Excellent. So I spent my career trying to kill latency in the supply chain. And what you're talking about is whether it's inside the warehouse, outside of the warehouse, inside of a transportation logistics service provider, there is latency. And figuring out how to connect those nodes as fast as possible. That is what I'm interested in doing, and specifically in an execution labor layer. And so when we think about whether it's the middle mile or inside or outside, inside the cab, outside of the warehouse, we need to think about how to take technology that has typically been this static system of record and evolve it into a system of action, system of execution that works with the labor layer, not against the layer labor. So you probably grew up looking at a TMS system or a WMS system or something that was stagnant, and you had to take action, or you had to write the rule to take action. Well, in the future state, it's a combination between coding, prompting, and building a semantic layer that understands the ontology of why and how decisions are made in logistics. And when we think about procurement specifically, there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. But I've always looked at it as a 100-step roadmap to a virtual, fully automated freight brokerage. I've been building out this thesis since 2012, but it hasn't been until the past, I think, really 12 months until we've had the capability to tap into the technology that has been produced over the past, I'd say, 3 years specifically.
Well, that was, I like how you mentioned the latency, how quick it can respond, because that's exactly what I had to deal with. You know, we were dealing with exceptions in operations. We would get notifications. We were exception management, but frequently it was like you had to ask somebody else. You needed a software developer. You needed this business analyst. You needed to have the one person who remembers what a Microsoft SharePoint is. And so now with the AI, when you're talking about the semantics, I'm assuming that's kind of this big leap is when you incorporate it in, you no longer have to have all this stratified layers of additional people. You're more empowered with the tools to move very fast.
The tools are changing. And you just nailed it. The tools that an operator has, they have to change. They've been the same for the past 20 years. And incrementally, they've gotten better. We've had different sort of visibility items. We could see where dots were on a map. We could see a beautiful report with colors and this graph that told you what was going on. But we never had any instruments, never had any technology that could help us take action consistently without direction from, specifically, as you mentioned, an engineer coding something, coding a rule, hard coding a rule into the back end. And so it's exciting. It's still early. I think we have another, things move fast in technology and logistics, but they also move slow. So what I've noticed is everything I predicted 8 years ago with intelligent rating, automated rating, a lot of the things you're seeing C.H. Robinson come out with today, there's going to be this next phase of discussion of AI native and AI labor execution and how that corresponds and integrates with these legacy systems, or if it replaces. And I think in the next 2 months, we'll see some very, very interesting announcements from some big companies and some big investors that are doubling down on the AI native platform thesis.
I kind of have that. That reminds me of how AI in the SaaSpocalypse now, where because the agentic AI can really just go in your database in your warehouse and it can just find it, you no longer need to have that moat. You don't need to have middleman gatekeeping. When we're thinking about that in the supply chain, I had a cool conversation with Bennett CIO, and that was one of the things where some of these AI platforms are being tacked on as modules, whether it's telematics, ELD, driver stuff. Is that kind of the thing where you see these very large companies, when they're thinking of AI, and they're like, well, I got this legacy system. It's like now the best time more than ever that if you're thinking of just kind of replacing it, because the AI is making it so much faster. And I'll tie that into your assistant that you all are working on as well.
Well, so let's just talk a macro, like what's going on in the industry. You have legacy TMSs that were started by people that are in their 70s and 80s now. You have major ones also that are owned by publicly traded companies. Some of those publicly traded companies are actually looking to divest their entire logistics division. And so when we think about these large publicly traded companies that own TMSs, we think about these privately held TMS companies owned by these older people that are looking to sell their companies. And then you have these billion-dollar companies that are still dependent, these billion-dollar LSPs, on these legacy TMSs. Now is the time for that to change. And that's why I'm so excited to be building Envoy. It's not just an adaptive rating system. It's not just an execution layer. It's not just on the procurement side, which is where we've started. Our vision is much broader and something that a lot of our customers we spend a lot of time intimately working with. So yeah, exciting times in the industry for not just builders, but also I think the best operators as well.
Well, let's talk about some of the procurement aspects. You all have, you're using AI helping with that procurement layer. Give us kind of an overview of, for folks who aren't as familiar, what makes it such a big deal and what made you want to target that area first?
So capacity is really challenging. I always believed when I was building my top 50 freight brokerage, every time we grew and scaled, and we had a couple of years where we doubled. We were an Inc. 500 company, one of the fastest growing companies in Chicago. And we had to hire people. We had to hire labor. And I think about that. And then I think about what we're building today at Envoy and how the goal is as brokerages start to grow and scale, it can't be linear. It can't just be with people. It has to be with this new labor layer, this new execution layer. And specifically in the carrier department, finding trucks, communicating with drivers, understanding their problems, issue resolution, understanding where they are, when they need to deliver, how they need to schedule appointments, how the change in an appointment can drastically change the rate, how we need to think about safety and verification. I spent hours, probably days of my life answering a call, verifying that the carrier was okay to work with in my system. Those days are over. Freight brokers in this next generation will never have to do that. And then take it one step further. And when we think about the LSPs into shippers, I'm a big believer in load control centers. And we have several shippers that have reached out to us and are engaging with us specifically to understand how they can communicate with their carriers better. Not necessarily how they bypass brokers, but how do they communicate better in this new era? And so we're not really even talking about AI. We're just talking about how to communicate better in a world that has really been rattled with this latency. We called it communication and visibility layer, but it was really just another latency layer.
Yeah, I remember there was a great study, I think it was MIT, talking about the latency extends all the way down to utilization. So for the carriers who want to use you and use you as a platform and work with shippers, the difference between I'm in and out in an hour because you guys have an AI workflow that has optimized it versus 3 hours compared to the other person, in this current environment, looking ahead as drivers are capacities becoming a premium in the current upcycle. I think that may be one of the big differentiators. It reminds me of like in Mexico where Mexican carriers will prioritize speed of payment over like certain other characteristics, because in that specific area, it was really hard to get paid in under like 30 days. And so I'm assuming that's one of the big things with AI now is we're taking this, it's not reinventing the wheel, but if you have a very fast wheel, you can win a race.
I agree. You mentioned payments specifically. In the world of freight execution and with the new labor layer, there is no reason that a company should pay in 30, 60, 90, 120 days. The entire payment ecosystem will change. It starts with how you verify carriers, how you're booking carriers, but the actual way in which carriers are paid, it already is changing. And I think we'll see different companies level up. We're not specifically working in the payment space. We're working on really hard stuff. So everyone knows about the explosion of data centers and what's going on with the reindustrialization of America. And so we saw that, and we needed to build a system that was adaptive and episodic. And by that, I mean, if we needed to work with a company that was doing flatbeds and these were $500,000 shipments or $2 million shipments going into a specific location, an undisclosed location that was high target, how do we think about using AI in our verification system and procurement system differently than if it's just CPG? And I was able to tap on a lot of my experience because I had to do this earlier in my career. I went from CPG to $3 million shipments of pharma going into CVS. And so it's the same concept. It's deconstructing the workflow, building it back up, and then understanding how to weave in a combination of not just code, but prompting. And not just prompting, but understanding the right LLMs to select in order to get the result that you and your team and your customer are looking for.
That kind of ties me into the next point as well, which is I think with a lot of organizations, we see the AI, we hear the buzzwords, we know that it can do things like little helpers, but figuring out how to train your workforce as well to also think about that, because that's got to be a brand new kind of concept. It used to be in my corporate days at US Express, the LLM was a middle manager, and then the VP would go yell at the middle manager and say, hey, I need to figure this out. And then the poor middle manager had to figure it out. And so now I'm assuming, think of the LLMs as like your personal little assistant. It's kind of like it's like a paradigm shift in your thinking. And then we can look into that, how that may impact the supply chain.
You nailed it, Thomas. So in the future, and I'm seeing this in real time, the best operators become orchestrators and the bosses of these massive agent platforms. I was on a line with one of our customers yesterday, and he has a couple different AI platforms he's working with today, and he's orchestrating them. So instead of managing 100 people, he's managing 20 people and 3 different AI platforms. And it's my role to be a gold medalist in specifically where we're at today, while also painting the picture of what I think he's capable of in the future. And part of it is taking this institutional knowledge, this tradecraft that has lived. It's in my brain. I can't. It's hard to explain it to people sometimes, but it lurks in brilliant people's minds all over the logistics service industry. We need to take that knowledge and institutionalize that so that they can work on more sophisticated, higher level projects, higher level problem solving activities versus this redundant activity they're used to. I used to be the human API in my 20s because that's all I did. I transferred information from one system to another. And I think this next generation of operators, they deserve better. And we're going to make sure they have better technology.
As we're wrapping things up, I think I have, we always got to throw in a spicy take, but one of the things that you've kind of touched on, especially with AI and what you guys are working on with Envoy. So I remember like in the early days there was Coyote, they had their system, they had, you tacked the phones, you brute forced it with people, you had a TMS platform in the early 2000s. That was like the first wave. We had another wave come in where the technology, tracking, telematics, looking for drivers, the P44s of the world and everything, we could finally get visibility. And then, COVID saw one. But with this AI, I feel like there's a fourth or a fifth wave. There's been so many waves now. Do you think that's going to be the differentiator for the next group of upstart logistics companies, or the ones that are going to be using these platforms and the AI? Because it does almost have that feeling. Because when I was an account executive, I had a team of 5. But now it seems, based on what you're telling me, I could have a team of 5 agents, and then I'm orchestrating and allowing them to automate versus taking 6 to 8 months to train a new person, and I hope they don't quit, and I hope they don't call out sick and stuff.
So first, major respect to Jeff Silver at Coyote and also what he's doing at Mastery. Major respect to Jet McCandless, what he has done at Project 44 and what they are doing right now in the AI space. So major respect to both of them and their companies. When thinking about this next evolution, it is going to be different because of the massive amount of money that is being poured into LLMs. And the right operators and the right technologists will be able to figure out how to start to enhance existing labor, replace some of the labor that exists today, and really change the substrate. And by that, I mean, there will be new systems, not just helping existing systems, but new systems, new substrates, and new operating models will exist. And that's what I'm interested in. That's what Envoy is doing. We are working with companies that are interested in changing their operating model fundamentally. And that's what's exciting to me today. And that's what I'm excited about in the future. So Envoy to the moon. As you can see, SpaceX, I'm pretty inspired by that right now as well, whether it's Moongistics in the future or not. But Envoy's here today, working on the procurement side. The future, though, is going to be much, much bigger.
I'm going to hold you to it. Space truckers. We're going to have some space trucker patches, or you can get some mission patches.
Absolutely.
All right, Robert, thank you so much for your time as well. Check out the folks, Envoy AI. Great stuff. Always a pleasure to be catching up with you. We'll definitely see you again soon.
Thank you very much. Take care.
All right, folks, stay tuned. We have a lot more great content coming up. Don't go away. This is the FreightWaves Domestic Supply Chain Summit.
And we are back here to close out the Domestic Supply Chain Summit 2026. I'm Isaiah Buchanan, joined with Thomas Wasson, and we just came out of a fireside chat with Thomas. He was speaking with Gary Allen. Thomas, what are some of the insights that you took away from that fireside chat with Gary?
They say it takes a village to raise a child, but it does take an organization to raise your agentic AI. And one of the things I liked with Gary and the Ryder folks is when they first identified the possibilities of AI, they got all their organizations together, imagine a company as large as Ryder, and they found thousands of potential opportunities. But the key thing for large organizations and all organizations is to make sure that you build the right pillars and focus on the right things. And so start small, start measurable, start it in places where in case it breaks a little bit, you have the feedback mechanisms to where it doesn't disrupt your organization too much. One of the other things I really enjoyed about it is AI, it doesn't have to fix everything. A lot of these executives are thinking we're just going to paste AI like Vegemite on a Vegemite sandwich. It's not going to work. It's an acquired taste depending upon your workflow and your needs. And so that was one of the great things. And then also I want to give a shout out to my guys at Robert, Nathan, and Envoy AI. One of the things I like about that is how they're also using AI to help with autonomy and execution. We're seeing that a lot in the warehouse warehousing space. So not only is agentic AI helping in terms of the data, the processes, but now it's also getting to a point where we can use it to help manage workflows, little robots, loading bots, unloading bots, eventually like autonomous trucks. The agentic AI age is upon us. Kind of like Lord of the Rings, the age of man is over, the age of AI has begun. One of the things we want to highlight, of course, is these events are not easy to do, and we give a special thanks to our sponsors, the folks who are there, viewers like you, to help make it happen. I want to give a shout out to our regional sponsor, Trimble, and our content sponsor, Envoy AI. If y'all are interested, of course, in becoming a sponsor, check out the event site, live.freightwaves.com. It's got all the information you need. We'd love to see you for our next event.
But it's not just agentic AI, though. You also talked about physical AI with Sean Mitchell from Gather AI. And I know there was an episode that we did on FreightWaves Today earlier this week where we had somebody who worked in a warehouse, and he talked about how they have absolutely no one in the warehouse anymore. And they've taken those people who were working in the warehouse, having them doing different jobs in the company. And so what are some of the takeaways that you had with Sean and his physical AI?
The physical AI stuff is great because now the robots are basically like, they're better than toddlers. They're learning to navigate the world, interacting with objects. It's a huge thing. So when we're talking about warehousing as well, the best way to compare this in the warehousing world is the invention of electricity. That sounds a little hyperbole, of course, but one of the reasons is because when electricity first showed up in factories, people didn't really know how to use it. Some people lit their factories. Some would have an electric motor powering a belt and everything else was manual. Warehouses are the same way. So based on these conversations as well, we're in the very early innings of what does an entirely automated warehouse look like? How does that work? How does it work without people? And that's the bleeding edge. My most favorite one that's more practical, if you don't love our machine overlords, is that you have AI agents helping you schedule workers. That's one of the very fascinating things is we're not getting rid of the job of the person who schedules warehousing and make sure the operations run. By no means. We're actually using a generative AI to help you put the right person at the right time for the right date and kind of manage all the chaos. So it's like an augmentation, not replication or replacement.
Well, everyone, we really hope that you have enjoyed this Domestic Supply Chain Summit. And we're not done just yet. We have one more thing to get to before we close out. We're going to announce our winner of our giveaway, and that is going to be, Thomas, can you give me a drum roll, please?
Boom.
And the winner of our R10 golf tracker is going to be Chelsea Curcio from Baroque International. She is the leader of rail operations there. Chelsea, thank you for supporting us here at FreightWaves and registering for this event. We will be in contact with you to get you your R10 golf tracker, and thank you again. And guys, I want to give a shout out real quick. You should join us in Chicago next month. A little less than a month from today, we will be there for our Supply Chain AI Symposium. And I will be up there as well as Malcolm Harris and several others of our TV crew. It's going to be taking place at the old post office. So make sure you get signed up for that on tv.freightwaves.com. Thank you again so much for joining us. And guys, we will see you for our next event.
The map is changing. As global uncertainties rise, the future of the supply chain is moving closer to home. Welcome to the new coast-to-coast North American network. Driven by massive reshoring trends,